the Scandinavian defense. You start the game by attacking their pawn. You're about to learn everything there is to learn about the Scandinavian defense. The opening moves, all the traps, the middle game plans, end game, everything. After watching this video, you don't have to worry about buying any course on the Scandinavian defense. But in addition to that, I'm also going to be making a video explaining the full theory of the Scandinavian defense, and that's going to be available for all my 400 members on YouTube. So if you're trying to master the Scandinavian defense, watch this full video. Apply what I teach and watch your ratings go through the roof. Kicking things off in the 500 region. Today I'm going to be showing you guys the Scandinavian defense. It's actually a very solid way to play. I mean, my 500 Elo opponent decided to blunder his pawn. It's called the Tennyson Gambit, by the way. There's actually something very important here, but I guess he's just blundering the pawn. I think knight to g5 would have led to some very interesting traps, but he's not. So let's just continue to play regular chess here. So let's just play the move knight f6, developing my knight. I'm also protecting my pawn here. And then he develops his knight to attack my pawn, but it's already guarded. So now I'm going to play this move, queen to d4. And yes, I'm developing my queen early. You know, being a Scandinavian defense, you should know how to develop your queen early and not get your queen captured or get your queen trapped. But my whole idea was just to attack his knight, which he decides to move out the way. And how do we continue here? I'm just trying to see how I can finish my development. Let's just go knight c6, regular development move. Then he plays b3. So I'm assuming he's trying to go bishop to b2 and put his bishop on the same line as my queen. Now I'm wondering if knight g4 is too premature. I mean, it hits f2. He's able to play queen f2. And if I'm able to get my knight to d4, that would be good. So let's go knight to g4, threatening the mate. He's able to play queen to e2 to defend the mate, but then I'm going to pull my queen back to f6, which keeps attacking the f2 pawn, but I'm also threatening to play knight d2, which is kind of like a removing the guard tactic, because if I'm able to chase away his queen, he will be getting checkmated on f2. So he did play queen e2 to defend the mate. Now we pull the queen back to f6, still trying to apply pressure to f2. Notice how I'm attacking twice and he's also defending twice. And that's why I'm planning on playing a move like knight d4. This is me setting up a removing the guard tactic. So he plays this move pawn d3. Okay, knight d4 hits the queen moves. But what I'm noticing is the guy doesn't talk to his pieces, guys. And the drawback blunder or the drawback principle, it's one of the main reasons why intermediate players blunder. Because yes, he moves the pawn, but he didn't ask himself what was the pawn doing. So now I'm able to simply take on c3, check the king, and I'm attacking the unprotected rook. So now he blocks the rook, we take the rook. Now we're just ahead by an entire 9 points, 9 moves into the Scandinavian defense. He blocks with the queen, but we're not stopping here. Once I take this queen, the king is actually overworked, guarding the queen and the pawn on f2. So once the king takes, I'll be able to take on f2, taking more material, forking the king and the rook. So let's take on f2. The king now has to move. Well, the king has to take. Now we take here, forking the king and the rook. The guy's losing everything. And the opponent resigns. More Scandinavian against 600 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 600. More Scandinavian coming your way. Okay, some persons are not going to take the pawn. If they don't take the pawn and they play something like this, then you could take the pawn. Because once the knight takes, you simply develop your knight to f6, and you're basically going to play with the same regular setup that we know how to play. Okay, now he plays pawn to d3. He doesn't want to take, but I notice he's also blocking out his knight. So from here, I'm just going to continue developing. Let's go bishop f5. Now I have 2 pieces attacking his knight. And if he takes my knight, he's moving the same pieces more than once in the opening 3 times. And he's going to be helping me to develop, which is why he plays this move, queen to f3, which is not a bad move. And because the queen is also x-raying this pawn, I have to be a bit careful. For example, if I play e6 takes, he's going to be able to take on b7. So I think this is one of those rare cases where I am forced to take his knight, which is giving up the bishop for the knight. But let's just continue to develop our pieces normally. I have some ideas of playing knight d4 to hit the queen, but I'm just going for normal development here. Okay, he develops his bishop. Now I want to play knight d4. I'm assuming he's just going to pull the queen all the way back. So let's just play e5 so that way he's not able to move this pawn forward. If he decides to play rook to d8 and attack my queen, instead of moving the queen, I'm just going to develop my bishop to d6 so that way I'm able to finish my development as quickly as possible. All right, bishop d3 was played. Here's a nice move that I like. bishop to b4 check. Why do I like this move? Because if he blocks with the bishop I take, he can't castle. And if he plays pawn to c3, there's a drawback. What was the pawn doing on c2? It was covering the bishop on d3. So because he moves the pawn, it's no longer guarding the bishop. Now I'm able to take the bishop. It's not necessarily a free piece though, because I take his bishop, he's able to take my bishop, but I'm just going to take the pawn. We will be ahead by a pawn. Okay, I decided not to take the bishop, so I guess we're ahead by an entire piece. He's currently attacking my bishop, though. I don't want to lose the bishop. So let's just move my bishop out the way. Let's put the bishop on e7. There's this pawn on e4 that is also hanging, so we're definitely going to be taking that pawn. Okay, he saves the pawn by playing knight g3. Not bad. Now I'm just going to get my king out the center of the board. I'm choosing to castle on the queen side because he may want to castle on the king side. For now, he's just not able to get castle though. He may have to play something like rook to d8. And if he plays rook to d8, I could trade the pieces off the board, which is just very strong. But I'm trying to find some ways to checkmate this guy's king. Knight f5 is not bad. He's attacking my bishop. He's hitting this unprotected pawn, but we're going for the king. He's also moving this knight away, which is leaving this pawn unprotected. So let's just take on e4. If he takes my bishop, I take back, and that's fine. I also have some ideas of playing knight e2 to attack the queen. And if the bishop takes, I take, and then I'm just going to be attacking his king. Okay, he took a free pawn. So I have some ideas here. I like the idea of playing knight d2, but it only attacks his king and his queen. And we have a very nice move here. And that's this move, knight takes c3. Why is this a nice move? Because if he takes my knight and I take back, I check the king, hit the rook. I don't necessarily win the rook because he's able to play king to e2, but his king will be under attack. And this could be the reason why he loses the game. All right, he also did not choose to take the knight. The guy's just not capturing anything. All right, my knight is under attack. Instead of just moving the knight out the way, why not just grab a free pawn and attack his rook? Now I'm threatening a lot of stuff because this bishop is able to go to b4 and check his king. His king is not able to move, so he's going to have to be putting pieces in the way. This could be at the end of this game. Wow. The guy says offense is the best defense and sack his rook. I mean, I'm able to check him here. And then he's gonna pull the rook back. Then I take the rook. Like this could lead to a checkmate, but let's just take back the rook. Like it's not like he's able to prevent this check anyways. No, he moves the queen from f3 to take on c6. But what was the queen doing on f3? It was covering the square on d1, which means that's just a checkmate. More Scandinavian defense against 700 players. Stick around. Opponent is now 700. More solid Scandinavian coming your way. So they take, we play queen takes, regular stuff. Most persons will attack the queen, just put the queen on a5, and then we continue with our normal development. So they play knight f3, we simply play the move knight to f6. Before you're going to see a lot, develop the bishop to f5, not g4, because your bishop will be kicked away. And then from here, okay, persons are going to play bishop to d3. In this position, you could choose to take the bishop, or you could choose to just continue with your development. Like either one of these is fine. The thing is, to take is a mistake, and if you take, you're basically helping the queen. So let me just use the time to continue with the regular moves that we play in the Scandinavian with c6 and e6 and develop normally. And if he takes on f5, I take back with the queen and I'm fine. So he got his king out the center of the board. Here we play e6. Same very solid setup. Just notice this pawn structure that we're going to have. This will be our plan. Now he develops the other bishop. Now I'm going to develop my knight, followed by the bishop, and then my development will be complete. And then he plays a3. Now that's an interesting move. I'm assuming he wants to play b4 and chase away my queen. But if he chases away my queen and I move away, then he's going to take and double up my pawn. So I'm going to do something about this right now. Still not going to take because to take is a mistake and that's just going to help him to connect his rooks. So now I'm going to put my bishop on the g4 square, which means now if he plays this move pawn to h3, then I can simply step back because it's not a case where he's able to play h3 and g4 because in that case, he'll just be exposing his king. So he decides to play the move g4. Now he's attacking my queen. I have some ideas in this position and I'm thinking about playing queen to h5. I like this idea of playing queen to h5. All of a sudden, the very solid Scandinavian could become very, very aggressive because already I have pressure on this pinned knight. My queen is pointing towards the h2 focal point, and from here I'm just trying to finish my development. Tactics alert, tactics alert. You see the move that the guy just played? Bishop to g5. Why is this bad? Now, keep in mind that this knight is the main reason why I'm not able to take the bishop. So what tactic am I going to obviously use to win material here? Removing the guard. I'm just going to get rid of the knight. Once I get rid of the knight, I mean, he has to take back with something. And then I'm just going to take the free bishop. One of the main tactics that I will be discussing in my upcoming book, by the way. So he took with the queen. Now we simply take, and 12 moves in the Scandinavian. We're already ahead by an entire piece. So he's getting his rook in the game. Let's just finish our development. The bishop usually goes to d6 or e7, depending on your preference. If you want to be a bit more aggressive, you can put it on d6. If you want to be solid, you can put it on e7. All right, now he's getting his rook in the game. Now let's get the king out the center of the board. Ooh, now he plays knight e4, which means he's now targeting my knight and my queen. But because I'm ahead in material, what am I going to do? Just trade the pieces off the board. And from here, the goal is to ensure that all my pieces join the game. So he took back with the rook. This knight, now I'm going to put it on f6 because knight f6 attacks his rook. So we're basically gaining some tempo on his rook, forcing him to move that rook again. Notice how our rooks aren't really doing anything. And you don't really want to have your rooks pointing towards your own pawns. Okay, guy didn't even move the rook out the way. I'm assuming he thinks I'm going to take his queen and then he's going to take back. But here's what he missed. He missed the idea that even though my queen is unprotected now, I'm still able to take the rook. Because once I take that rook, my knight protects my queen. And if he takes my queen, I just take back. Maybe he's going to take with the queen, but no, I'm just ahead by a whole entire rook. And what do we do now that we're ahead in material? Just finish bringing all the pieces in the game or trade once you're ahead in material. So since this rook is not doing anything, we're just going to swing this rook in the game. Very simple plan. So let's now just swing this rook in the game, getting all our pieces in the game. That was a trick, by the way, because you guys need to see that there's this battery pointing towards h7. So we have to ensure that we deal with this. But remember, offense is the best defense. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move my queen over. Looks as if I'm just innocently defending the checkmate. But that's wrong. Not only am I defending the checkmate, I'm also threatening my little type of checkmating ideas on h7. But remember, unprotected pieces causes tactics, so I'm also attacking his unprotected rook. He plays g3 to defend this. There goes his rook. Now we're just ahead by 10 whole points. All right, he moves his king out the way. Now that he's threatening this checkmate, let's just play pawn to g6, preventing the mate. My plan from here is to swing this rook in the game, this rook in the game, and usually the pawn breaks that you guys are trying to go for is moves like pawn to e5 or pawn to c5 to open more lines for your pieces. But the opponent resigns. More Scandinavian against 800 level players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 800, more Scandinavian coming your way. All right. Another person decided not to take the pawn, but remember, if they don't take the pawn, you take their pawn, and then you simply develop your knight to f6. Now, notice how many times he's moving the same pieces more than once in the opening. And once you take with the e-pawn, it's also helping us to finish our development. So he develops his knight. Now from here, I'm just going to be going for simple development. Develop my bishop. Okay, he's developing his bishop as well. Let's get the king out the center of the board. And then he's also getting his king out the center. All right, from here, I'm just trying to finish my development. Let's go knight c6. And I'm also trying to play this move, bishop to g4. So for example, after pawn d3, bishop to g4 in this scenario is good. Whenever someone's king is castled, bishop g4 is good. If the king is not castled, then you don't want to play bishop g4. Okay, now he plays rook to e1. The knight is pinned. Whenever a piece is pinned, what do? We put pressure on that pin piece. That's why I'm going to hit him with the move knight d4. PP on the PP. He's not able to take my knight because he loses the queen. And once I take his knight, whether I take it with my knight or my bishop, his king will be exposed. Okay, that was not a bad move. Putting the bishop here is not bad any at all, because now if I take, he's able to take with the bishop. But this is where removing the guard comes in. I'm trying to get rid of this bishop. But the other thing that I want you guys to keep in mind is the bishop is also on the same line as my queen. Remember, this is one of the tactics that you guys must know. Because the bishop is on the same line as my queen and my piece is in the way, we now start thinking about discovered attacks. And that's why I'm able to hit him with bishop takes h2 check. If he takes with the knight, then he loses the queen. And if he takes with the king, then I take the bishop. Now his knight is still pinned and I have 1, 2, 3 pieces attacking that knight. He only has two defenders. This is where the game ends, guys. This is where the game ends. Now, here's what I'm going to do. Even though I have the three attackers versus the two defenders, I'm gonna first check him on h5, force him to move the king, and that's when I'm gonna take the knight. Because if I choose to take the knight now with check, it's basically over. Because even though he's able to take my knight, I'm gonna be able to take on f3, which hits his queen and threaten a checkmate. So now once I take on f3, he's not able to just move his queen out the way. He has to sacrifice his queen. If he doesn't sacrifice his queen, he would have been getting checkmate. Now we take the queen, and we're now just ahead by an entire queen. All right, so he moves the king out the way. Now I just need to bring more pieces in the attack. So let's go rook to e8. Rooks needs files. Oh, he moves the bishop out the way. That's the only move that he shouldn't have played because now the king is not able to escape, which means that's just a checkmate. More Scandinavian defense against 900 level players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 900, blessing you guys with some more Scandinavian. They take, we take with the queen, regular stuff. They hit the queen, we play queen d5. And once he plays d4 or any other move, we're just going to develop the knight to f6. Now, once they play knight f3, a lot of persons like to play bishop g4, but bishop to f5 is better. It's not good to pin the knight if the king is not castled. Now, bishop to d3 was played, and I do not advise that you guys take, because if you take, it's a mistake. You're helping their queen to be developed. So let's just continue to develop our pieces normally. And if they ever take with their bishop, we're going to take with the queen, not the pawn. He got his king out the center of the board. Now I'm going to play knight d7, just trying to finish my development. Eventually, I'm going to try to play bishop d6, pawn c6, and get my king castle. But I don't want to... Okay, now that he plays rook to e1, I don't want to go bishop to d6 now because knight to b5 is going to be very annoying. So I'm going to use this time to go bishop to g4 and pin his knight. And yes, I'm moving the same pieces more than once in the opening, but I'm not really wasting too much time from here. After this, I want to play c6, so that way it's very hard for him to play d5 and continue with my attack, or not necessarily my attack, but my development. Okay, we know what is happening here. The bishop is on the same line as our queen. So let's just play the move pawn c6 so that we were able to pull the queen back to c7. And by the way, guys, in a lot of cases, if your bishop is already pinning the opponent's knight like this, you're actually able to swing your queen over to h5. But okay, not when they play h3. They play h3, don't give up your bishop for the knight. Pull the bishop back. This pin is just going to be annoying and it's going to stay annoying. Okay, he moves the knight out the way. Same discovered attack on the queen. Let's just pull back to c7. And okay, if he plays knight g6, then I have to pull back. If he takes, then I takes, and then I'm just fine. And my bishop will be going to this d6 square. I think I lied to you guys. I think I'm lying to you guys because now that he takes with the knight, why can't I just take with the pawn so that way I open the g file for my rook, castle on the queen side, finish my development, and then use the g file to start an attack on his king. Okay, now he's just trying to connect his rooks. Let's finish our development. Pawn c4 and c5, or pawn c4 and pawn d5. This could be his plan to finish getting all his pieces in the game, but I'm just going to get my king castled here. I'm chilling. Once a rook gets to the g file, then the attack will begin. Okay, so he did play c4. Maybe he wants to play c5. Or maybe he wants to play d4. Let's get the king out the center of the board. Seeing that there's so many pieces was on the same line as my king. Pawn to c5 is slightly annoying because kind of have to take my bishop off of this diagonal unless I'm able to just check his king and force the king to move. But my queen will always have to be guarding my bishop. It's a very weird position, but it's very interesting. Okay, he got his rook in the game. I'm assuming he wants to push, and if I take stakes, I'm going to be losing material here. It's not a bad plan, by the way. If he push, I want to be able to take. So let me put my rook on the same line as his queen. So that, oh, that was not good. That was not good. He is still able to push. In fact, now if he push, maybe it's not good if he push. Because, okay, I'm not able to take because sacking the queen is just winning. But I should be able to at least play knight to e5, which applies some pressure to his pin knight and attacks his bishop. But instead, he moves his queen out the way. I mean, he's very aware of certain things, like the fact that my rook is on the same line as his queen. I'm trying to put my rook on. Look at this, guys. Look at this. I'm going to put my rook on the g file, knowing that there's a drawback. But why am I doing this? I kind of want him to take the pawn, because if he takes the pawn and then I move the rook, then I have two lines pointing towards his king, and that's going to make my attack way, way easier. Okay, now he plays d5. Now he plays d5. Let's just take. The thing is, if he takes, I can't take back due to this pin. And I think it's best if he takes here. And I think I think, no, it's not. Thought it was a tactic. It's not a tactic. Because if I take his rook, he can't take with the knight due to the pin. He can't take with the queen, but he is able to take with the bishop. So that does not work. I mean, maybe I'm still able to take and then play knight e5, or I could just immediately play knight e5. I think both of these moves are decent moves. Let's just go with immediate knight e5, just to keep more pieces on the board. Okay, he pulls the bishop back. Now if I takes, bishop takes, still not able to take due to, well, I am able to take, but it just doesn't get me anything right now. And I'm not able to take here just yet. How do we continue the attack? There's a sacrifice here, swing over the rook with check. He moves his king. Then I take here, but once he takes here, he's just fine. So maybe what I'm going to do instead is just to do a plan that threatens to double up on the file or something. Like this that he has here is very aggressive. In fact, let me just get my king off the same line as that rook, because my queen is already on the same line as the rook, and things could be getting dangerous. Okay, he took. Let's just take back with the knight since there's no more pin happening here. And another thing that I'm thinking of is to sack my rook and then jump in. But his rook is on the same line as the queen, so it's still being very annoying here. Okay, he moves the bishop, pinning my knight. How do we continue from here? Still want to take, but he's always able to play bishop takes. But I'm wondering if at that point I'm able to hit him with this move, hit the rook. Okay, I need to get my queen out of this pin as well. It's very weird. Let's take on e8 first. After he takes, I'm going to go bishop f4 and attack the rook. But this pin is just... Oh, he took with the queen. What a blunder. That's a drawback, bro. Now the queen is no longer guarding the knight. So now I'm able to take the knight, and because pin pieces don't protect, I just win material because this pawn is not able to take. That's crazy. Okay, so he took on c6. What I'm not going to do is immediately take back the bishop. I'm about to do something called an in-between move, where before I take the bishop, I take on g2 with check. Now, I will take the bishop, but a check is the most forcing move in chess. So he has to react to the check. Once he takes, now I take the bishop. We're just ahead by 4 points, by the way. Completely chilling here. I'm also trying to play moves like bishop here and apply some pressure to this pawn. And the opponent resigns. More Scandinavian defense against 1000 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1000. More very solid, simple Scandinavian coming your way. He took the pawn. Now we take. We exactly know what to do here. Like the thing about the Scandinavian is you kind of already know the entire move. So the video about the theory of the Scandinavian that I'm gonna play, I'm gonna try to go a bit deeper with the plans of each pieces and more theory behind the Scandinavian because everybody's gonna know, what are all the moves. Like everybody knows what are all the moves. The bishop goes to f5, the pawn goes to e6, the pawn goes to c6, the knight goes to d7, this goes to e6 or e7, and then we castle. Like that's the whole plan. And by the way, if you haven't joined my YouTube members as yet, consider doing it to support the channel, or if you want to get access to the theory video of all the opening videos that I've already done. He's developing normal development. Let's do the same, developing the bishop to f5. And eventually I'm going to have a pawn on e6 and a pawn on c6. He got his king out the center of the board. Now we play e6. And usually they play d4, bishop to d2. So that way the bishop is on the same line as my queen. And that's when we pull the queen back to c7. But for now, that's not even a threat. He plays a3. Maybe he wants to play b4, but that's going to be bad, by the way. Let's continue with the plan. Pawn goes to c6, pawn goes to e6. Eventually, we're just going to be developing our bishop. Then he plays d3. It's usually a bit better if the pawn is on d4. It controls more important squares in my half of the board. But let's continue with our development here. Let's just go knight d7. And then afterwards, the plan is to go bishop e7 or d6. Now that the bishop is on the same line as my queen, what do? Pull the queen back to c7. Right, so he put his rook on the same line as my king, so we definitely have to be a bit careful there. Let's just develop the bishop and get the king out the center. And I didn't put the bishop on d6 because knight e4 could be a bit annoying there, and it would have been attacking my bishop. And if I takes, he's attacking the other bishop. So let's just play it very solid. And once you play it like this, eventually your knight On d7, can always go from b6 to d5. That's also a plan, a middle game plan for you guys to know. So the video about the theory explaining the Scandinavian, these are the stuff that I'm going to be explaining. So for example, now that he moves the knight, let's get the king out the center of the board. And then I'm going to be talking about what's the plan with each pieces. This knight usually goes here and here. The bishop usually goes here to pin the knight. This knight, usually stays on f6 or also go to d5. The rooks usually go to d8 and c8. These are the stuff that I'll be explaining. Okay, now he plays bishop to c3, and okay, he's applying more pressure to my knight on f6. And if I take his knight, he's going to take back. So why not just play knight d5 now? Because a knight usually goes to d5 anyways, and I'm not attacking his bishop. And if he allows me to take his bishop, then it's a slight advantage because we get the bishop here. Right, so he jumps in with another knight. This knight is only being guarded by this knight, so I'm going to try to attempt some removing the guard tactic or just double up his pawns. Like this knight is a bit overworked, guarding both the knight and the bishop. So let's just take on c3, hit the queen. We already have the bishop here. We're doubling up the pawns because he can't take with this knight. Otherwise, he's going to lose this knight. So he has to take with the pawn and get doubled pawns. So he did take with the pawn. Now, what do we do when a piece is on our half of the board? Very simple. We chase those pieces away. This is called the principle of neutralization. Don't allow any pieces on your half of the board. And then once the knight goes back, then we can continue with the plan of going knight b6, then put another knight on d5. Okay, he pulls the knight back. And okay, before I play knight b6, I need to ensure that my rooks are active. So let's go rook to d8. Let's put the rook on the same line as the queen. A lot of good stuff could happen when your rook is on the same line as a queen, or your bishop is on the same line as a queen or a king. All right, so he moves his knight, which is attacking my bishop, so we have to be a bit careful. There's this move, bishop g4, but once he plays h5, I can't even pull the bishop back here, h3. So let's just play bishop back and pull the bishop back one square. Sometimes there's some sacrificial ideas on e6 that you guys need to be aware of. Knight b6 is an idea to eventually put the knight on d5 to hit this weak pawn on c3. Bishop f6 is also an idea to just continue to gang up on the weak c3 pawn. Queen a5 is also an idea to continue to gang up on the weak c3 pawn. Then he eventually played d4. All right, so knight b6, I'm assuming he's going to pull the bishop back here. There is pawn c5, and if he push, I still go knight b6. And yes, guys, pawn to c5 is one of the thematic break. Once you play the Scandinavian, it's usually e5 or c5, but c5 is usually good because you're trying to get rid of the opponent's pawn that is in the center for a pawn that you have that is not in the center. And then he pulls the bishop back, was expecting that move. Here I have to take because if I move, I lose the piece. And if he takes, he doubles up my pawn. So let's take on d3 here. He took with the queen. Now I'll go knight b6. Eventually, I may play knight a4, maybe knight d5. The guy's playing some chess though, for 1,000. He's doing better than a lot of persons is probably going to do in this video because most persons would have already blundered material. So even though he has this little double pawns, he's still playing some good chess. Then he jumps in with the knight. All right, how do we continue here? I could take stakes. That doesn't really do much. I have to be looking out for these sacrificial ideas. There is bishop to f6, which hits the knight. There's also bishop d6, which also hits the knight. Let's go with bishop to d6 and apply some more pressure to his knight. All right, so he moves the queen. He's also applying pressure to b7. So if I take stakes, I could take on c2, but he's going to take on b7. How do we do this? Now let's just centralize the knight. Usually the knight is very strong on d5. I'm applying some pressure to c3. In some cases, now I'm threatening to take and then play queen c2. There's usually a trend with persons who play very slowly. Whenever you play very slowly, you play good chess. So I'm always going to advise people to play slow. But you also have to ensure that you manage your time because in a 10-minute game, you're going to lose on time. But don't make it a habit to play speed chess, especially if you're trying to play in tournaments and so on. The slower you play, the better moves that you're going to play. Now he puts his rook on this open file. You see, now he's trying to speed up a bit, but this already looks like a free pawn because there's nothing guarding the pawn. So eventually the blunders will come. If you're someone who plays slowly, once the game starts ticking down, you're going to have a good position and everything. But if the position is not good to a point where you're able to play that position very quickly, then you're still going to lose, bro. What my coach used to tell me is that once you get yourself into time pressure, your strength cuts in half. Okay, now he's using the queen to be one of the main defenders of the knight, but I'm able to now just win a pawn, especially since, well, if I takes, knight takes, takes, he's going to be able to play rook takes. So maybe what I'm going to do is, yes, I'm going to give up my bishop for the knight because there's a lot of pieces that is pointing towards my king. And then eventually I may take on c4, winning even more material. Now he took with the rook. That's even more pieces on my king side. Yes, 3 pieces on my king side, so I have to be careful. But let's just take the free pawn. I'm attacking his rook, so we're now ahead by 2 pawns, and I'm also attacking this third pawn on a3. Okay, so he moves the rook. Not necessarily a fork because he's going to be able to take on b7. So let's just play b6 for now, defending the b7 pawn. Now I'm threatening to take this pawn and threatening a fork. He has less than a minute on the clock. So now I'm just waiting on the blunders to come in. Unless he's just going to play until his time runs out, which is, I don't know. Okay, he moves the rook, not necessarily hitting the knight because it's guarded. So now we're taking a third pawn. We're now ahead by 3 pawns. I'm hitting this rook. I'm also attacking this unprotected pawn. And then once I take this pawn is going to be able to start rolling up the board. All right, he moves the rook out the way. Now we have a passed pawn plus 4 extra pawns. Okay, now he's trying to create some loft for the king, but you guys know what we do when we have passed pawns. We roll them up the board. Passed pawns must be pushed. He pull his queen back. Let's keep rolling the passed pawn. Queen is also like the worst piece to use to defend in general, but it's also the worst piece to use to defend against a passed pawn. So now the knight is applying pressure to my pawn. So now he has 2 pieces attacking my pawn. How do we do this? Let's just play queen here, which attacks both of the rooks. If he pulls this rook back too far, which is what he did, now he's losing this rook. But he also has no time on the clock. With that being said, we're going to be playing more Scandinavian against 1100 rated players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1100. Let's play some more Scandinavian defense. All right, so we have someone take the pawn, knight c3. This is what you're going to see mostly. Move the queen over to a5, and the development from here should be very easy. They play d4, just develop the knight to f6. Very simple development. Knight f3. Remember, it's not good to pin the knight if the king is not castled. So let's just play the move bishop to f5, developing normally. E6, c6, knight d7. Put the bishop here or here, and then castle. And whenever they play bishop d3, we do not have to take, because to take is a mistake. And if we take, it's helping their queen to be developed. So let's just use the time to finish our development by playing moves like e6. And if they take, the goal is not necessarily to take with the pawn, it's to take with the queen. All right, now we got his king out the center of the board. Let's keep developing our pieces. Let's go knight d7. Then he took. Now, it's always best if you let the opponent take. You don't want to be the one who does the capturing. All right, so he got his rook on the file. Regular development moves. Let's just play pawn c6, continuing with our idea. Plan is to put the bishop on d6 and then just get the king out the center. Okay, my queen is under attack, but he is putting his knight on the edge of the board. So let's just move the queen back over to a5. And if the bishop goes here, we put the queen on c7. That's usually where the queen belongs. And from c7, my queen and my bishop could join a battery and target this pawn on h2. He plays a3 instead. Let's just finish our development, applying some pressure to h2. If he puts the bishop on the same line as my queen, I'm just going to pull back. And my plan is to get my king out the center. Okay, so he did it. So let's pull the queen back. Regular stuff. Now he has to spend time defending this pawn. It would be best if he just pulls the knight back to f3 because the knight shouldn't be on the edge of the board anyways. So he did pull the knight back to f3. Now, I could try to make this game very aggressive by castling on the queen side, and I could try to make the game very solid by castling on the king side. Now, it's all a matter of taste and what you prefer. It's always going to be advised to castle on the king side if you don't want a crazy game, but I want a crazy game. Let's just castle on the queen side and then start rolling the pawns up on the king side. It's also a very easy way to plan, especially when there's opposite side castles. Ooh, he's starting his attack. You see how quickly he's starting his attack? Because you know what's coming. All right, we have to ensure that our attack is fast as well. And the thing about this position is he hasn't pushed any pawns on the side that his king is on. So I'm going to try to force him to push some of the pawns on the side that his king is on by playing this move knight to g4. Now, if he plays h3, I may just pull my knight back, then play h6, g5, g4. But I'm also considering playing h5, going for the fishing pole trap. Good. So we got him to push a pawn on the side that his king is on. Let's just pull the knight back. Yes, I wasted a tempo, but it's hard to attack someone's king if there's no weaknesses around this king. Now we're going to use this pawn on h3 as a hook. And my plan is to get a pawn on this g4 square. So how am I going to do this? If I take, he takes, and I'm forked, So here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to do. Instead of playing h6 and then g5 and then g4, that's going to take too long. And his pawn is already on b5 attacking c6. So I'm going to immediately play the move pawn to g5, sacrificing a pawn. Now, it's very important that you guys understand what is a pawn storm. It's basically the pawns rolling up the board. The purpose of a pawn storm is to open lines. So even though I'm sacrificing the pawn, if he takes the pawn in any way, I managed to open the G file pointing towards his king. So that is still beneficial to me. Okay, he took. Let's just stay back with the queen, not the pawn, not trying to expose our king too much. And the other good thing is my queen is also pointing towards this G2 square. Remember focal points, guys. You guys have to understand that as well. My plan from here is just to play G5 and open the G file. If he takes on G5, then it's helping me. So he did take. Now we play rook to G8, hitting the bishop. The bishop does not have to move, by the way, because the knight is guarding it. But I'm also thinking of playing H6. Wait. Oh my God, so embarrassing, guys. He just made a drawback mistake. He blundered a whole entire knight, and I missed it. Oh, that's embarrassing. All right, he took on f6. Let's just take back. The knight is still hanging, but that's fine. I'm not assuming he's gonna lose the knight 2 times in a row. If he moves this knight out the way, then he's getting checkmated. Okay, he didn't hang this knight, but he hung this knight because the queen is no longer guarding this knight. So that's also a more advanced level of the drawback principle, which means now I'm still able to take on f3. Why? Because pin pieces don't protect. Now I'm threatening a checkmate, by the way, and I'm ahead in material. So I think the best you could do is play knight g3 here, and trading the queens off the board just completely win the game. But usually you don't trade if you're currently attacking someone and you know that you're about to checkmate their king. But if you're ahead in any amount of material, even if it's 1 point, trading is still helping you to win. So he did play knight to g3, and the plan is to take this knight eventually. Let's just pull the queen back first. And again, trading is just completely winning, but I think if I take the knight, then play rook takes, I'm going to be able to checkmate his king. So he moves the rook out the way. Everything is going to plan. Now we take the knight. If he takes, then we take on g3, and now we have 2 pieces targeting his focal point on g2. So he has to find a move to defend it, which he did, but now I'm able to play rook to g8. Now I have 3 attackers versus his only 2 defenders. So his next move has to be another move that adds more defenders to his g2 pawn. And he did find a move to defend the pawn, but what's the plan from here? We're going to be ganging up on that pawn. This is the target. We're going to be attacking that pawn with everything we have. So I'm going to start by playing the move knight to d5. Yes, it's cutting off the queen from attacking the pawn, but I'm threatening a fork on c3, and I'm also threatening to play knight f4 to target this square. So even though he plays this move pawn to c4, now I'm able to play knight f4. And yes, the queen is able to take my knight, but if the queen takes the knight, there's a drawback. That's one less piece protecting his g2 pawn. And if he moves the rook out the way, I still take on g2 because now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces attacking g2. He only has 1, 2, 3 pieces defending g2. Remember focal points, guys. It's very important, and it is something that I talk about a lot in my upcoming book. So he plays pawn to d5. Yes, he's attacking my queen, but I'm able to take his rook, and I'm able to say check. So he's not able to take my queen just now. He decides to resign. But more Scandinavian defense against 1200 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1200. Play some more solid Scandinavian. They take, we play queen takes, knight c3 will happen, and now we move the queen to a5. Now, he develops his knight. From here, we're just going to develop normally. We're going to develop our knight. Remember the simple development plan from here? On d4, we do not want the bishop on g4 because h3 chases away the bishop. So let's just play bishop to f5 and continue to develop normally. And whenever you see the bishop on the same line as your queen, now is the time that you want to play c6 because you don't want any discovered attacking ideas. You want to be able to pull your queen back to c7. You notice how quickly he used this discovered attack? But it's fine. Let's just pull the queen back to c7. And keep in mind, I want you to look on your moves in chess like investments. He invested 1, 2, 3 moves in his knight. I only move my knight once. Plus, once him take my knight, I'm able to develop my bishop. So he's actively wasting time and giving me time. Okay, he develops his bishop. He's still trying to finish his development. Let's develop as well because the plan is to get our king out the center. Oh, that check is actually so good. Maybe my bishop belonged on e7. So I was gaining some time in the opening, but I think I just lost it with this check. Now, if I want to get back this time, after I castle, I think I need to be able to put my rook on the same line as the queen. And by the way, his pawn on c7 is hanging, but I don't want to get too greedy here. So he puts his rook on the same well, he's attacking my bishop basically. I think now is the time to simply put my rook on the same line as his queen. Like I can't move my bishop just yet, but I think I'm doing fine because eventually he's going to be forced to move his queen or put the bishop in the way. So we're still doing fine. We're still going to be continuing with the regular plan. So let's finish our development. Knight d7, knight b6, it's the bishop, knight d5, and I also want to put my bishop back to d6. So now he moves his queen out of the way. It makes a lot of sense. He also wants to play bishop f4 and attack my queen. So I'm going to play the move bishop to d6. I'm also targeting this pawn on h2. His knight is defending the pawn though. So if we can think about any removing the guard type of tactics, then that would be great. Okay, pawn c3 was played. The guy's being very solid, but I think I have a very nice move here to secure a slight advantage, and that's because the knight is the main defender of the pawn. So anything I could do to just try to remove the defender of the pawn, that is going to help me. The issue with the position is if he moves the knight away, I take the pawn. If he tries to protect the pawn so he doesn't double up the pawn, I'll still take the knight and take on h2. But if he moves the pawn, I'm still going to take the knight and he's going to have double pawn. So Black already has a slight advantage. So he decides to pull the bishop back so that way he doesn't get the double pawn, but we're still going to be using a removing the guard tactic where we take on f3, eliminate the knight. Once the bishop takes, we take on h2, and then we're already ahead by a pawn. Now, these are all the tactics that I'm discussing in my book. The book is almost, well, the book is basically finished. I'm just working on the finishing touches, guys, but I'm pulling the bishop back so that way he does not trap my bishop. And now I'm planning on playing moves like knight b6 to c4, knight b6 to d5, and especially since I'm already ahead in material, all the trades is going to be benefiting black here. Okay, now he plays g3. I'm tempted to sacrifice, but I'm not going to sack because I do not have enough pieces in the attack. So let's just continue with the idea. Knight goes to b6. Usually the knight on d7 goes to b6, then to d5, or in some cases b6, then to c4. But he saw the idea of me trying to put my knight on c4. So I'm still going to play knight d5, even though he's able to take my knight, give me an isolated pawn. It's gonna make him have this. Well, he already has a weak backward pawn, but if I'm able to give someone a weak backward pawn on an open file, then that pawn is gonna be easier for me to target. And again, I'm ahead by a pawn. I mean, I want to trade, right? So he take, let's just take back. Technically, my weakest pawn is d5. His weakest pawn is c3. So my goal from here is to target the c3 pawn as much as I possibly can. Now, the only piece that I have in the position that is not doing anything is this rook. And even though my book is about helping you to get better at tactic, 80% of the time you're not going to be seeing any tactics. So I also discuss the fact that what do you see when you do not see a tactic? And I basically say to just follow the principle of the least active piece. Find the piece that is not doing anything and put it on a better score. Now, I'm expecting him to play this move pawn to c4. So I'm going to play queen c6 just to put my queen on the same line as his king. So that way, if he tries to play c4 and I take, it comes with check. Okay, he moves his rook on this open file. It's not alarming. I'm assuming he's going to try to target my h7 pawn, but okay, I'm not necessarily afraid of that any at all. Now I'm just going to play the move rook to e7 because I'm trying to double up either on the c file or the e file. Like, even though all my pieces are active, I'm still trying to get them on better squares. So he plays this queen to d3 move, which is attacking h7. Now I'm going to simply play the move pawn to g6, protecting h7. I also have some ideas of playing f5 followed by rook e4, and my rook is just going to be so strong on that square. And I also have some ideas of playing f4 eventually to start an attack on his king. Okay, rook h2 was played. I'm assuming he wants to double up, but that really should not help him. Okay, I'm going to start by playing the move f5, so that way his queen is just not doing anything. And if he plays rook to h1, I'm able to play h5. And even though I'm advancing pawns on the side that my king is on, he's not necessarily able to make any progress with his major pieces. I'm giving myself some dark square weaknesses because I have no pawns covering the dark squares, but I have a dark squared bishop, so I can always just get the dark squared bishops off the board. So now that he's attacking my rook, let's continue with the plan, putting the rook on e4. Tactics alert. Oh, wait, actually, no. Yes. Yes, tactics alert, guys. So we have to be a bit careful here. because he's threatening to sack his rook. Once he sack his rook and I takes, he checks, king has to move and I mated. But I still think I have a tactics here, and that's because there's more than one unprotected pieces in the opponent's position. So unprotected pieces are the second most important weakness that you need to know, and there's two unprotected pieces here. The third most important weakness is pieces on the same line. My queen is on the same line as his bishop. So here's what I'm going to hit him with. I'm going to play the move bishop to a3. This is called a discovered attack. Hit the rook. If he moves the rook, I take the bishop. If I hit the rook and he sack this rook, I can't take the rook, but I'm able to take the bishop. And then if he doubles up the rook, not seeing the move, but I should be fine. Let's just go bishop to a3, and black is just winning here. So he still decided to go rook to h1, but that's when we take the bishop. And yes, my pawn on h7 is under attack, but anytime he takes on h7, he's not necessarily able to check me on h8 and get something from that check. And by the way, I may have to sacrifice my queen for the two rooks, but I'm going to have two rooks, which is already better than a queen, and I'm going to have this extra bishop. So I think my position is fine. Like, I'm trying to see if I have to do it, but I think I have to do it. How do I? Let me just double up my rooks. I think that is super important. Okay, we have to be careful. Yeah, let's just double up the rooks. I was afraid of this move queen d2 with the idea of playing queen h6, but if he plays queen d2, then I may start running, because now if he checks, I'm able to run here. So I think he has to use the opportunity that he has now to check on h8. I can't go to g7 due to this check, which means I will be forced to sacrifice my queen, but I will just have a 4-point lead in material. Oh, he's going for it. All right, first of all, I have options here. Like, I could run. I'm also thinking about just pulling the bishop back, and then if he check, I just take. But I'm also thinking about just pushing the pawn to f4. But I think it's best if I run, because having a free piece is usually just the easiest way to play. My king is going to be slightly exposed though, so I still have to think about it. Run, check, king up, takes. My king is in the center, but he doesn't really have much. And yeah, I think it's best if I just run. If he could try to check me here, but then I run here, and I'm fine. Okay, so he checks, we run. That was the plan. All his pieces are on the king side, so my king being in the center is safe. I can always run my king over here, but I don't have to run too far. He's just not going to have enough pieces. Okay, rook g7 is interesting. I'm assuming he wants to go here, but my f-pawn is already guarded. So again, my king is safe. I'm now going to start my attack on him. Now I'm going to hit him with pawn to f4. If he takes, rook takes, and I'm fine. Even if he checks, I can just move and then trade here. Like, I want the trades. But I can also just play queen takes because I'm ahead in material, and it's best to trade the queens off the board if you're ahead in material. Okay, so he plays g4. He doesn't want me to open too many lines pointing towards his king. But now I'm able to play this move pawn to f3, and this has to be an annoying move because all of a sudden my pawn becomes one of the main attacking pieces, attacking his king. And watch this. If I'm able to get my rook to e8 guarded, then that's going to be a checkmate. So okay, my king is in the way, so we have to move the king out the way. So I'm going to run a bit more. So let's just play the move king to d7, which means I'm threatening a mate. And I'm assuming he's now going to run his king to g1, so that way if I check, he's able to go here. But all of a sudden, I'm attacking him. Okay, he plays pawn to g5 to tap my queen. But guess what? That's just checkmate. More Scandinavian against 1300 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1300. More Scandinavian coming your way. All right, so he took, we take with the queen. We already know what is happening here. They attack the queen. We put the queen on a5. Now from here, it's just normal development. Develop the knight, and since the goal is to play e6, but we don't want to play e6 and blocking this bishop, so we play bishop f5, not bishop g4, because he's going to be chasing away our bishop, and we don't want to be giving up a bishop for a queen, for a knight. All right, bishop is on the same line as the queen. We know what to do here. Play pawn c6, so any discovered attacks that he uses, we're able to pull our queen back to c7. All right, so he's developing the other bishop. And here's what we're going to do. Let's just put the queen on c7 now, so that way we don't have to worry about the discovered attack. And then we're going to continue developing our pieces normally. Okay, queen to c1. I know exactly why he plays this move. He wants to put the bishop on f4 and attack my queen, but that's fine. Let's just play pawn to e6, so that way if he puts the bishop on f4, I'm just going to develop and defend my queen. And he's going to be the one who's moving his pieces more than once in the opening. Okay, he jumps in with the knight. I mean, Now I'm able to play c5, but let's just focus on our development first. Let's go knight to d7, applying some pressure to the knight. He already moved the knight more than once, by the way. Like, all I need to do to fully complete my development is to play bishop to d6, get my king out the center of the board, and all my pieces will be developed. Okay, he got his king out the center of the board. The thing is, though, he has some issues counting because I have one, two, three pieces attacking his knight. He only has two pieces guarding the knight. So what are we going to do? Just take the knight. And we're not necessarily winning a knight, but we're winning a pawn. Because once he takes back with any one of these pieces, I'm going to take on e5. Just like that. We already have an advantage. And the good thing about the Scandinavian playing it like this is you have no weaknesses in your position. So he took. Let's just take back. And if the bishop takes, I'm going to take with the queen. Now, I'm expecting him to play rook e1 and put his bishop on his rook on the same line as my queen. But I should be able to just pull my queen out the way or even castle because there's no discovered attack that I should be afraid of. So he did put the rook on the same line as my queen. I don't want to risk anything though. So let's just move the queen out the way. Remember, pieces on the same line is the third most important weakness. So you have to be able to see those. All right, so now he moves his queen, but that queen is going to be forced to move again. So even before I castle, I'm going to hit him with this move, rook to d8, because I'm bringing my rook in the game, but I'm doing it with tempo on his queen. So now he has to move the queen again. And keep in mind, the queen is the only defender of this pawn. So if he moves his queen too far away, depending on what the queen is doing, could be a free pawn. Okay, he puts his bishop in the way. But here's the thing. I am going to take that bishop. And you know why? Because now he no longer has two pawn islands. He has three pawn islands. And I still have two pawn islands and an extra pawn. Let's just get our king out the center of the board first. And now we have a very simple plan. And it's to target this weak pawn on d3. And by the way, guys, being able to spot weaknesses and target weaknesses is very important for your chess development. But here's another thing that is very important for your chess development. You need to be able to spot focal points in the opponent's position. So I'm going to play the move knight g4, and maybe you guys are saying, why are you playing knight g4? Do you not think the guy's going to see this? I do. But what do we want? If we're able to force the opponent to push pawns on the side that their king is on, then they're weakening their king. And that's why you should not push pawns on the side that your king is on unless it's forced. Or it's in the end game where you need to push one of these pawns so that way you don't get back rank checkmate. So he did push the pawn. And if you look on the position, my least active piece now is the f rook. So I need to get the f rook in the game. But just playing a move like rook to e8, that should not be good for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the move rook to d7 because my plan is to eventually play the move rook to d8. And guess what? We're still applying pressure to this weak pawn. Okay, now he plays queen to g5, which is attacking my unprotected knight. So let's just pull the knight back. At least we get him to push one of those pawns. And eventually I'm going to be able to double up on his weak pawn. And being able to spot weak pawns and just know what are weak pawns, it's a pawn that just can never be guarded by another pawn. All right, he jumps in with the knight. He's trying to trade. That's not a bad move because I don't necessarily want to take the knight. Because if I take the knight, even though the trade is good for me, this pawn is no longer weak. The thing is, though, if I don't trade and I centralize, he's able to play knight c5. So that move that he just played was just good. So I'm going to have to take. His pawn is no longer weak. But guess what? We're ahead in material, so the trade should be benefiting us anyways. He takes with the pawn. Now we double up on the rook. So if he takes, I'm actually going to play queen takes so that way I have full control over the d file. And if you guys are seeing what is happening, notice how I'm not necessarily moving a lot of pawns. Notice how I do not have any weaknesses in my position. And then he moves the king, and my goal from here is to convert this winning extra pawn into a one game. So what do we do when we're winning? We trade the pieces off the board. Plus, the rook is unprotected, so it's not a case where he could simply put his queen somewhere and he's not trading because then I'm going to take this rook. So he did decide to trade. Now we take, or rook is on his second rank, and this position is just so active for us. Like, if he has to play a move like rook to b1, then it's bad. Now we're in the endgame. What do we do in the endgame? We bring our king in the game. Once you're in the end game, there's three things that you need to be doing. And if you're not doing these three things, maybe your plan is not correct. You need to be attacking weak pawns, you need to be pushing past pawns, and you need to be activating your king. So he plays a3. I'm assuming the plan is to play b4. Notice I also have 3 pawns versus 2 pawns. So that is also an idea that, hey, I'm going to be able to create a pass pawn. But let's keep activating our king because king activity is crucial in the end game. Now he plays this e5 move, and I know what his plan is. Like, he just doesn't want my king to be active, but that's fine. Now I'm going to play c5. And why am I moving this pawn instead of all the other ones? Because this pawn is the candidate pawn. And if you have a pawn majority, it's important that you push the pawn without the counterpart. So that's basically what I'm doing. Now he plays b3, and now I'm going to continue to bring my king in the game. Because again, king activity is crucial in the endgame. He plays b3, then plays b4. That was bad, bro. And instead of taking, now I'm going to push. Now we have a pass pawn, we have an active king, and it's very easy for me to activate my king. Like, remember, guys, if you want to be good at chess in general, your end game has to be good. And if you want to be good in the end game, you can go to the link in the description and get access to my Patreon, which will give you a full 4 hour course on the end game plus much more. He moves the king. Now we take another free pawn, and with 2 pawns in the end game, this has to be winning. He attacks my pawn, but let's just play b5, protecting it. His pawn on b4 will also die. f4 will not help. Let's not rush though. Let's see. Uh, I'm going to play king here just to continue to activate my king, thinking about pushing this pawn. Okay, now he's trying to come in with his rook. Let's attack his weak pawn. I mean, if he checks, I'm just going to move. He has nothing. Maybe he goes here to attack my pawn, but then I go here to hit the rook hand. Once I take, I'm going to have 3 connected pass pawns rolling up the board. There's no way this is not going to be an easy win. Now, he's able to do this and check and start taking these pawns, but my pass pawns are just too fast at this point. So he took. Now we check, forcing the king away. The plan is not necessarily to take this pawn. The plan is to start rolling the pass pawns up the board. Because remember, pass pawns must be pushed. He's now attacking my pawn. Let's keep rolling the pass pawn up the board. He took, and now I'm just going to continue. Well, my king is in check, so we have to move the king, but eventually the plan is to continue to roll the pawns up the board. Now he moves his rook here because he's also trying to roll his pawns. But let's just continue to roll our pawn. He push, I push. And if he push, I'm just going to queen. And yes, I'm allowing him to queen, but guess what? His king and his queen is on the same line. So now I'm able to simply check him on e1, check the king, force the king out the way, take the queen, and that's GG's. And he resigns. More Scandinavian against 1400 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1400. Let's play some more Scandinavian defense. Knight c3, we go queen e5. I will be explaining all of this in my full Scandinavian defense theory, so consider becoming a member of my channel if you haven't. But you guys have seen me explaining this so many times. The moment the bishop goes to d2, he's trying discovered attacks. Just play c6. Because what he's trying to do is move his knight somewhere, but you're always going to be able to pull your queen back to c7. So he develops the knight to f3. Let's just pull the queen back to c7, avoiding any drama that may come from this discovered attack. All right, so he's developing normally. Let's develop normally as well. And just a reminder, it's not bishop g4. Usually the bishop on, for example, if he had castle anytime, then the bishop is good on g4. But for now, let's continue with the regular setup. Knight d7, bishop d6, get the king out the center. Or if we feel very ambitious, we can also castle on the queen side. So he's putting his rook on the same line as my king. Let's develop the bishop, pointing it towards this h2 pawn. And if he plays h3, then we can go h6, g5, g4, open the g file, and start an attack on his king. Ooh, d5. d5 is not bad at all. Because of the spin, I'm not able to take here. I think we have to take on d5 though. I mean, I'm assuming he's just going to take back, hit the queen, hit the knight. So I'm just going to take. And after he takes with the bishop and I castle, he's still going to be forced to move his bishop again anyways. Oh, he's also not able to take with the knight because the bishop is hanging. So he has to just take with the bishop. And then I'm just going to castle. And then he's going to be forced to move the bishop. Oh. Oh. If I take his bishop, he takes my bishop and he wins my queen. Oh, but I'm ahead by a pawn though, bro. Like, are you hoping that I take the bishop or something? I'm just gonna move my queen. It's fine. Let's just move the queen. You could get the bishop here. I'm ahead by a pawn. I think he should have just took back on d5. Like, so he took on d6. Let's just take back. Bishop is still under attack. Thought he would have checked, but he didn't. So let's just get the king out the center of the board. That just gave us a pawn. It's crazy. People are just gifting people pieces these days. All right, he moves the knight, hits the bishop. Now, what I'm going to do, instead of pulling the bishop back to g6, I'm going to put the bishop on g4 because offense is the best defense. Knowing that he's able to play f3 and attack my bishop, but at least I'm getting him to push a pawn on the side that his king is on. So he did play f3. Let's just pull the bishop back to h5. We had to move the bishop anyways. Eventually, the bishop is going to be on this diagonal. Now he plays a3. And why did he play a3? Because he noticed that my queen and my rook is on the same line. It's fine though. Let's just develop normally. Because now if he puts his bishop on a3, I'm going to be able to take. He took on c6 and I'm still going to take with the pawn. And you see how quickly he plays bishop to b4? Guy's playing too fast, bro. Like pawn c5 just hits the bishop, lock in. Now he has to move the bishop again. Right, so he pulls the bishop all the way back to d2. All my pieces are active except my rooks. So we have to ensure that we're getting the major pieces in the game. This is the only open file on the board. Let's go rook to b8. And I'm aware that I'm putting a lot of my pieces on dark squares in this position, but there's no way in which he could put a bishop here or put a bishop here. Once I'm aware of it, I should be fine. All right, that's not bad because he's currently trying to expose my king, but that should not work. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit him with the move pawn c4. And if he moves this bishop away, he's losing the pawn on b2. There's a little trick here though. If I play c4, he may take thinking, I can't take because d6 is hanging. But if I push and he takes, I'm able to play queen c5, which checks the king and hit the unprotected bishop. So I'm still going to play the move pawn to c4. Maybe he could put the bishop here, but that's another pawn, bro. All right. Now he decides to pull the bishop back. He didn't save his bishop. Guy's playing for tricks, man. The thing is, let's just say I'm going to lose my rook for this bishop. If I just take this bishop and then he still pulls the bishop back, it's like I'm losing a rook, but I'm getting two bishops. That's a bargain. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm able to hit him with the same move, queen to c5 check. So he now has to get the king out of check. And even before I move my rook to safety, I'm going to take another pawn. Yeah, this guy's playing a whole lot of hope chess. Now that he pulls the bishop back, my rooks are no longer under attack. So I'm going to choose to take with the queen. Now I'm ahead by an entire 5 points. He's trading queen, which is perfect for us. His pawn on b2 is also hanging. That's why he played b4. My pawn here is hanging. So let's just defend it. No need to rush. Eventually, I'm going to go rook to c8, protect everything. Also use my bishop to protect my pawn. This is just game. Okay, so he hits the bishop. Have to pull the bishop back anyways, but at least now I'm protecting my pawn. Okay, rook is applying some pressure here. That's fine. Let's get the rook behind the pass pawn. Plan from here is just to roll that pass pawn. Bro, come on. He attacks my knight, bro. I'm threatening to put a queen on the board. Now I just queen. He has to sack. I take with check. He now has to move his king. And now I get the chance to save my knight. I'm now ahead by 5 points. And the opponent resigns. More Scandinavian against 1500 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1500. More Scandinavian defense coming your way. He takes. Let's just take back. Everybody's going to attack the queen, but we know where the queen belongs. The queen belongs on a5. He develops his knight. We're also going to be developing our knight. We know the simple setup from here. Pawn d4, we know to put the bishop on f5 and not g4 because we want to play e6. And once we see a move like bishop to d2, they want to immediately apply pressure to the queen. So we're going to play the move pawn to c6 so that way if he moves the knight out the way, we're able to pull the queen back to c7. That's what he did. He gained the discovered attack on the queen. Let's pull the queen back to c7. And if you're trying the Scandinavian, maybe you're going to be losing your queen like this. So ensure that you're very careful about what is happening. Now, once they take, we simply take with the e-pawn. Notice how many times the opponent is moving the same pieces in the opening. And because of this, it's going to allow me to gain a lead in development. So he develops his bishop. I'm also going to be developing my bishop, pointing it towards this pawn that if he castles, his h2 pawn is going to become a target. So he did decide to get his king out the center. We're also going to be getting the king out the center. And we also need to finish our development. So knight d7 is going to come next, regardless of what he plays. He plays c4. We're still going to play knight d7. Now, if he plays c5, it will be a bit annoying because now we have to move the bishop again, but he will be creating a backward pawn on d4. And in some cases, I could be able to put a knight or even a bishop on this very strong square. All right, so now he's getting his rook in the game. The rook is also on the same line as my queen, so I have to be a bit careful here. But I'm thinking about playing c5. After takes b4, that may be annoying. So let's just continue to bring all our pieces in the game. Rooks definitely needs files at the end of the day. So let me just put my rook on the open file. Now, my a rook is now the only piece that is not doing anything. He insists on playing the move pawn to c5, which hits my bishop. Now I'm just going to move my bishop out the way. I'm not sure if my bishop should go back to f8 or f4 because this is his bad bishop. But pulling my bishop back to f8, I'm not necessarily seeing how I'm going to get that piece back in the game. The thing is, though, if I play bishop here, after takes d5, that could also help him to get rid of his bad bishop. Unless I, well, of his weak pawn, unless I go here and attack this, but he takes and attack my knight. I'm going to purposely pull back to f8 just to keep more pieces on the board. Now, in a perfect world, I would like a knight on d5, but I'm not necessarily seeing how I'm going to get a knight on d5. So I'm going to try to get a bishop on d5 instead. So let's just play the move bishop to e4. I mean, maybe I could play f5, knight f6, knight d5. I mean, that's possible. And there's always rook to d8 to get my a rook in the game because it's the only piece that is not doing anything. And remember, whenever there's not a tactic on the board that you could use, then you should always just looking for ways to find a piece that is not doing anything and just put it on a better square. All right, now his bishop is here. So we have to ensure that we're looking out for any possible ideas of him moving the pawn to d5, but I already have very good control over that square. And because he's pointing towards my focal point on f7, I also need to ensure that I'm careful there as well. So I'm thinking of playing the move f5 with the same idea of playing knight f6 to d5. If f5, I have to look on any possible checks that he has, but if he checks, I'm able to block with the queen, so I'm safe. So I should be safe playing this move pawn to f5. But the whole idea is my knight isn't really doing anything on d7. It has no good forward move. So if your pieces has no good forward move, you need to put them somewhere where they have better forward move. So once my knight goes to f6, it's going to be more active. But once it's on d5, it's going to be mostly active. All right, knight g5 is a very, very strong move. Very, very strong. I actually didn't even consider. Like I said it, that my f7 pawn was weak, but I didn't consider the fact that my me playing f5 is leaving this square unprotected, and that's the whole basis of how the drawback principle works. Let's just pull the bishop back to d5. It's the only move that I'm able to play to not lose f7. And his knight is currently targeting two of my focal points, so I need to be careful. For example, a queen could also come in to apply pressure to h7 and f7 at the same time. But I should be fine with this move knight to f6. Like, luckily my knight is still able to get to f6. Now, if he takes, I takes, I'm gonna have this isolated pawn on d5. So it's a very weird scenario still. All right, so he's trading the rooks off the board. Let's just take, allowing my rook to get some open file. Then he took, now I have to take back. Both of my pawns are unprotected. I think he needed to play queen to f3 and just attack both of the unprotected pawns at the same time. Playing b4 was really not necessary, bro. Let's just go knight to f6 and continue with the plan. Now I'm guarding this pawn, and eventually I'm going to play the move pawn to h6 and just chase that knight out of my half of the board. So he voluntarily decided to pull the knight back. And now I'm going to instead hit him with this move, knight e4, jumping in with my knight. And this is a really nice score for my knight. It's not like an outpost or anything because eventually he's going to be able to play f3 to chase away my knight, but that's going to take a lot of effort. Now, I'm also trying to ensure that I'm improving this bishop because, again, doesn't have good forward moves. This pawn on d4 is weak. So if I'm able to get my bishop on this diagonal, then that would be good for me. Uh, Okay, he plays g3. I have an idea on why he plays it. I guess he wants to put the bishop on the f4 square, which is not bad. I'm thinking about just getting rid of that bishop though. Um, but it's not necessarily something that I'm afraid of, to be honest. So let's just continue with the plan of playing g6. I want to get my bishop on a better diagonal, attacking his weak pawn. And if he plays bishop to f4 to attack my queen, now I'm just going to move my queen out the way. All right, the question is, where do we put the queen? If we go here, the knight is coming in. So I'm actually going to play queen to d8. I like d8 because I'm now able to play g5 because now I have two pieces covering the square. And a move like g5 can also chase away his bishop. And yes, we shouldn't be pushing pawns on the side that our king is on. But whenever you're attacking and you're not really creating too much weaknesses, then you're able to do it. So he plays a4, correct idea. He wants to play b5 followed by c6, which means I definitely have to start chasing away this guy's pieces. So let's hit him with g5, forcing the bishop to go back. All right, so the bishop goes back. Now I'm thinking about some f4 ideas. f4 takes, bishop takes is good for him. Queen f6 allows knight e5, but then f4 hits the bishop, and That has to be very annoying. And it's also very important that I try to start some form of attack on his king side because he's clearly coming in with some queen side attacks. So let's hit him with this queen to f6 move. It also makes c6 just a bit harder for him to play because if he plays c6 now, I'm going to take. But I'm assuming his idea is to play b5 followed by c6 to roll his pawns up the board. And what he's doing is correct. I mean, the guy has 3 pawns, I have 2 pawns, you have pawn majority, you roll them up the board. So he continues with his plan. I'm going to continue or start my plan of hitting the bishop. I don't think he should have took. Maybe he could have just pulled the bishop back. Now I take, immediately hit the bishop, forcing the bishop to move. And now at least I could say, your king is slightly exposed. You know, I don't think it's exposed in such a way where I'm going to checkmate him, but it's definitely exposed. Pawn c6 is still coming, so I have to be very careful about my next few moves. All right. I'm sure that he wants to play pawn push. So maybe I should try to prevent it. Or maybe I should try to get my rook on this file. I'm also thinking of check him here. If I check, he has to play king to f8 though. That could be the start of an attack. If I check king f8, this pawn is going to be under attack though. Maybe queen g4 with some ideas of checking here. This has to be good, bro. This just has to be good. Now, one thing you guys need to keep in mind is you have to always ensure that you're considering the most forcing moves in the position. And the most forcing move in the position always starts with a check. So I check the king. The king couldn't move because it has to prevent this pawn, so it couldn't go to the square. Now, if I'm able to get my king here and check him here, I could be forcing his king on the same line as my rook, which could be what helped me to win this game. So now I want to play this move. Check, boom. If I go here and he takes, I check and I win the game. Nah, maybe not, because he's just going to go back. So maybe I should go here and protect everything. Knight here is an idea. I could still check. Let's do it. Queen g4. Notice what I'm doing, guys. I'm counter-attacking. Because his pawn is like 3 moves away from queening. He has a very simple plan to queen his pawn. But I have some active pieces. And I'm also thinking about some ways to get my e-rook on the g-file. It's not very easy to do, but I have to start by playing this move king to h8. And then maybe I can move my bishop somewhere and swing the rook over. But right now I like my position. So he pulls the knight back. That was a good move. Because now I can't check here. There's no sack if I push. Okay, if I push, there's no queen takes because this is unprotected. There's no knight takes because of the check. And maybe I can sack my queen. So, oh my god, this is such a strong move, bro. Because now my pawn is also an active piece in the attack. I'm threatening queen g2. This is crazy. Queen takes doesn't work because the queen is guarding the bishop on d2. So I mean, you could say the queen is overworked. If he moves the knight, he's giving up control over the square. He plays the move rook to c2, but now I'm able to check him on g2. Now his king has to step out the way, which is guarding the knight, which means this is a checkmate. Then the opponent resigns. More Scandinavian against 1600 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1600, playing some more Scandinavian defense. Whoa. Guy played f3. So basically, let's just say e4, e5, f3. That's the opening that he's playing. That's weird, bro. For 1600, look at this. He's exposing this diagonal pointing towards his king, and his knight is not able to develop to f3. Then he plays d3, which means now his bishop is also not being able to develop. Wow. Okay, now I just need to develop my pieces normally. Like, I'm not necessarily seeing a way to punish him for doing what he's doing, but I'm sure I'm going to be out of the opening. I'm going to be in the middle game while he's going to still be in the opening. Okay, he develops his bishop, pinning my knight. That's fine. Let's do the same. Develop my bishop, apply some pressure to his knight, pointing towards this weak f2 square. He develops his knight, which means he's now threatening to take on d5. So that could be an issue. And I don't want him to take on d5, so let's play pawn c6 to protect it. Now, one thing he could try to do is to takes, and if I play queen takes, takes, and then he plays knight takes. So if he takes, I may just take with the pawn. But, okay, queen d2, maybe he's just going to castle on the queen side. That's what he's going to do. He's going to castle on the queen side. All right, let's finish our development. Let's go bishop to e6, maybe knight d7, queen b6. He castled. I'm noticing that the king and the queen is on the same line here, so I'm also trying to set up some ideas. All right, but we still have to finish our development. Let's go knight d7. All our pieces are fully developed. Knight is still not yet out. Bishop is still not yet out. He took the knight out, but the bishop still needs to be developed. Maybe eventually he wants to play e4. I think eventually I'm going to be able to castle on the king side. So I'm going to hit him with this move, pawn to b5. So that way I'm able to start my attack on the queen side already. Because remember, guys, once it's opposite side castles, it will be a crazy game. f4 was played. Okay. I think he's trying to play. I think he's trying to play f5 and trap my bishop. h6 takes, and then my bishop is trapped. Okay, maybe I should play here, but then he push. And then if I push, he takes, I takes. It's a very weird scenario. I'm not trying to get my bishop trapped. Queen to b6 threatens this. If he push and attack my bishop, I push and attack his bishop. If he's not able to move the bishop due to the pin, if he takes my bishop, I take his bishop. He's able to take with check, I take back. I'm still threatening the pin. It's probably a bit weird. Maybe I don't want that. And if I play h6 takes, my bishop is trapped, right? So I'm just going to take on f4 so that way there's no pawn coming in. And then once the knight takes, now I play queen to b6. So I'm still threatening this idea of playing queen to e3. I mean, he's able to play pawn to d4 though. Pawn to d4 is just a very simple defense. But if he plays d4, hit my bishop, I go to b4 and pin his knight. And because the knight is the only defender of his e-pawn, the pawn is going to be under attack. 1600, by the way. 1600, not seeing the third most important weakness, which is pieces on the same line. Come on, bro, you need to lock in. Remember, guys, it's king safety, unprotected pieces, pieces on the same line. So now we hit him with the move bishop to e3, and just like that, 11 moves into the Scandinavian, and we're already winning the game. Just to remind you guys to like the video. He's probably going to resign here. So this is the reminder to like the video. We're trying to get 1,000 likes this video. He didn't resign. He took on e6 first. Let's just take the queen. I mean, I'm now just winning. So let's just take the queen. He took with the rook. We take back on e6. And from here, it's just chess. Still some work required from me to convert this into a win. But right now, he has two very annoying pieces on my half of the board, which we need to deal with. For example, this knight. I can't even castle. So let's just play the move king to f7 because the knight is also attacking me on g7, assuming he's going to move his knight out the way now. And then I'm going to be able to swing my rook on this open file. All right, he's trading. That's good news for us. I'm actually going to take with the pawn because if I take with the knight, he gets a check. So let's just take with the pawn so that way he's not able to check here and his knight is still under attack. I don't really care about any king safety issues here. Like my king is always going to be safe. All right, he moves the knight, which is unprotected, but I can't really do much here unless I got all my pieces in the game. So rooks needs files. That's the plan. Let's get the rook on the open file. Now he jumps in with the knight. Okay, now he's threatening a fork. We have to be careful. So let's play this move pawn to c5 so that way my queen protects the d6 square. Eventually, maybe I'm able to play f5 and hit the knight, and then if the knight moves, I move the king. But I don't want to create any unnecessary weakness. All right, now he's trying to fianchetto his bishop. And the bishop is going to be on the same line as my rook, so let's just put this rook on this file. After he fianchettos the bishop, I need to now activate my knight. But let's just put the knight in the center of the board. Wouldn't be surprised if he plays something like rook to f8, putting his rook on the same line as my king. Yeah, that has to be alarming. I'm thinking about moving the king out of the way, but I think he wants to sack the knight. Maybe I should play knight g4 to defend f6, and if he hits the knight, I hits the rook. Let's do that. Knight g4, defending f6, and if he plays h3, I go knight e3. This is what I'm really trying to do. That's what I wanted to do. I want to trade the pieces off the board. So playing this move, no, I'm just jumping in. I mean, even though I have the queen, it's still not the easiest position to convert. I'm only ahead by 2 points. What is this guy even doing? I just took a piece. He plays knight to f5. Maybe because he thinks he's going to be able to take on f6, but let's do some math here, guys. Let's just say I'm about to lose my queen because I will, right? Queen and a pawn is what? 10 points. This is 5. This is 8. 8 plus 3, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's 11. Let's just take. And once he takes, I'm just going to sack the queen and then take. And just like that, we're playing ahead by an entire rook. But do we immediately take the knight? No, because we're going to have so much extra material. So first thing I'm going to do is check him on e1, force him to block with the rook, so that way we're able to trade everything off the board, then take the knight, and I'll be ahead by so many material, and it's just GG's. The opponent resigns. More Scandinavian against 1,700 players. Stick around. The opponent is now 1,700. More Scandinavian defense coming your way. Okay, he plays d3. The guy just he just wants to trade the queens off the board. Now, d3 is not really good, by the way, because after the takes and then trade, he's losing the right to castle. But I personally just don't want to go in all of this. So what I'm gonna do instead is I'm just gonna play e5 here. Just to control the center of the board. And then if he plays knight f3, I play regular knight c6. Anytime he takes on d5, it's the same thing. I take, knight c3, we move the queen over, and everything is fine. But because I play e5 and I didn't play e6, I'm going to have to play this a bit more aggressive. But instead, he plays knight f3, which means I'm just going to play the normal knight c6. And this is just going to be a regular development opening. I mean, he's going to have issues developing this light squared bishop in the long run. So let's see what he does. What's I'm not going to take on e4 because if I take, I'm helping his bishop. And even though he loses the right to castle, I don't really gain much, which is why he played d4. But notice what is happening now. Now we get him to be moving the same pieces more than once in the opening. But if I take this pawn, he's going to take this pawn. So how does this work? Let's just develop the bishop. Let's just develop the bishop. Keep all the tension in the center of the board. Now that I develop the bishop, now I'm threatening to take this because the knight is going to be pinned. Okay, he took on d5. Now, what I'm not going to do is take back on d5. Instead, I'm going to take on d4 with the knight because this knight is still pinned. And I could be ahead by a pawn at the end of all of this. So he plays bishop to e2. If I take, takes, queen takes, everything is normal. I didn't necessarily want to take this bishop, but bishops are better than knights at the end of the day. So let's just take. Now, I'm assuming he's going to play queen takes. If I take, he's also able to play queen takes with check. And then after I takes, then he plays knight takes. So my pawn on d6 is currently under attack. Wait, there's also queen to b5 check though, so I need to be careful. Okay, I don't want to allow him to play queen to b5 check because he checks the king, hit this unprotected pawn. It's very annoying. So I'm going to just give up my bishop for the knight, just so that way his queen is not able to come over here. And then I just continue to develop normally. So now let's just develop. So it's just a normal position. I'm going to try to win this pawn, but it's not going to be as easy. Right now I have two attackers. Okay, guess it was a bit easier. Now, he develops his bishop thinking, okay, bro, you're not able to take the pawn because your knight is pinned. Who said I'm going to use the knight to take, though? Like, what happens if I use the queen, bro? I'm already ahead by a pawn. We're 9 moves into the Scandi. Okay. First, he took my pawn, my knight. So if I take back his bishop, I'm gonna lose my queen. So I have to take his queen first. The good thing is, I'm trading material in an endgame where I'm already ahead by a pawn, and he has this very ugly-looking pawn structure. In terms of pawn islands, I have 4 pawn islands. He also has 4 pawn islands, but I'm the one with the extra pawn. I'm assuming he's gonna get his king castled. Let's just get my king out the center of the board. If he gets his king castled, I really, really like this move bishop to h6 because now I hit him with bishop h6, I am pinning this knight and I'm already applying pressure to the knight twice. And I have a very simple plan here. Trade every single pieces off the board and just win the king and pawn endgame. Because remember, if you're ahead by only 1 pawn and you trade everything off the board, the king and pawn endgame is just mathematically winning. So he plays pawn to c3 because he wants to play this move king to c2. But I already have the plan to win this game. How am I going? Like, if you're able to see how I'm going to win this game, that's good. But I'm going to actually take with the rook. Why am I going to choose to take with the rook? I'm going to choose to take with the rook so that way once his rook takes, his rook is pinned. And now I'm not necessarily in a rush to take his pinned rook. And that's why I'm going to play the move rook to d8, applying more pressure to his rook. And yes, he's able to play this move rook to d1 and protect the rook. But as I said before, I'm going to trade everything off the board. Now, usually when someone's rook is pinned, you usually take the rook when they try to get out of the pin. So I'm trying to find any useful move that I could play here. Like, for example, after all the trades, I'm going to play king up and he's going to play king up. So maybe I need a pawn here. So let's just start by playing f5. And then maybe once he plays this move, king to c2, then I take. If he plays a pawn move, still don't need to take the rook. Okay, but he plays a king move, so let's just trade everything off the board because we know that the king and pawn endgame is completely winning because we have the extra material. So the first thing that we need to do though is to centralize our king. We don't want to be making any pawn moves without activating the king. So let's get the king as active as it can possibly get. Okay, now he plays c4. Maybe he's trying to prevent my king from coming in. Now, the other step is to kind of fix the pawn so that way we get him in a position where he's only allowed to move his king. So he plays c4, I'm going to play c5. I'm just trying to fix the pawns. And then eventually, notice what is happening right in this little section of the chessboard. I have 3 pawns. He only has 2 pawns. So with that being said, it's going to be a 2 versus 3 pawn majority. Okay, now he pushes this pawn. He wants to push, takes. What does this go again? Pawn b6, pawn push, takes, pawn push. And that's an outside pass pawn. But he's able to push here. If he pushes here, I take, and then he's going to take. I run to the pawn, he runs to my pawn. Yeah, that's a bit too risky. We don't need all of that drama. Let's just continue to just fix everything that is happening. If he push, I'm just going to push, fix the structure, and then I'm going to use this 3 versus 2 to win the game. Okay, moving the king is also bad. Now, there's a little idea in the end game that you guys need to know, and that's when you have 1 pawn preventing 2 pawns from moving. So once I push this move pawn to a4, he can't push this because I take, he can't push past because of the en passant. Now he plays f4. Okay, that's not a bad move because if I take, it's kind of like I only have 1 pawn. So let's just play f6 here, and I'm just never going to take, and I may also just not push. Like, I want him to take so that way once I take, it's really 2 versus 3. He moves his king out the way. He's trying to get his king over here. Also not a bad plan. Still not the easiest game to convert. I'm wondering if I'm able to get my king over this side, like king over, king over, king over, king here. Now he's running to my pawn, but then I push, takes. He continues to run to my pawn. I play king up. He plays king here. I play king up. He takes, I takes. He moves the king out the way. I push, he push, I push, he push, I push. Wait, I'm lost. What just happened? Let's go again. I go here, E goes here. I go here, E goes here. I go here, E takes, I takes. He goes here, I go here, E goes here. So the king is now on h6. I go here, he takes. The king is now on h7. I takes. He moves the king out the way. I push my pawn. Now the pawn is on h4. I push. His pawn is now on h5. I push, I think. The pawn is now on h6. I push. The pawn is now on h7. I queen. He's gonna queen. Ah, that doesn't work. All right, let's maybe run the king over to this side of the board. Okay, he moves his king. Let's continue to run my king over this side. And if he puts the king here, well, if he puts the king there, that's a pawn. Like, it's a triple pawn, but it is a pawn at the end of the day. Ah, we got him. We got him good. He plays f3. That's not how it works, son. Because now I'm able to play e4. Only now I'm able to play e4. And we create a pass pawn. So if he takes, I take. And then I'm going to play f5. And with my protected pass pawn, it's now just over. So he took. We take back. Very simple win from here. Okay, now he's pulling his king back, but we're not necessarily in any rush. Let's just play f5. Now I have a protected pass pawn, which means I could do anything with my king because he's not going to be able to take this pawn. Okay, so now he's coming here with his king, but now I'm just going to come around with my king. It's fine. Even if he goes here, I'm just going to waste a pawn move. Okay, but then he's just going to keep doing this with... Okay, that's not the move, bro. Come on, lock in. Now I'm just going to waste a pawn move. You have to step away with your king, and then my king gets a bit closer. Okay, now he plays h5. Now we push the pawn. I'm gonna hit him with a fox in the chicken coop technique. Basically using my pawn to distract his king. And once his king move away, then I take this pawn. And if he takes my pawn, I put my king on g3, which means this pawn is hanging. But I don't really need that pawn. Like, I'm just trying to roll my pass pawn up the board. So he pulls the king back. I'm not going to push just yet because I want to put my king here because the key squares for the rook pawns are these 2 squares. If you guys don't know what key squares are, then get my endgame course. It's in my Patreon, link in the description. But once he moves his king, now we're going to start running these pawns up the board. By the way, guys, if you haven't liked the video, help me to hit 1,000 likes. This video, I think he just gave up and pushed this pawn. Let's just take this pawn. Now he's running to this pawn. Now I'm just going to roll this pawn up the board. And this is where we promote to our queen. Okay, he moves the king. Let's get our queen rolling. The opponent resigns. More Scandinavian against 1800 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1800. More solid Scandinavian coming your way. So he takes. Now we play queen takes. Most persons will hit the queen. Now we play the move queen to a5. It's very, very simple here. Pawn d4, we simply play the move knight to f6. Now, there's other moves in which they could play. And I have a video explaining the theory of the Scandinavian for all my members. Knight to f3, we simply play bishop to f5. By now, we know that we don't really want the bishop on the g2 square. And from here, it's just normal development. Pawn goes to c6, pawn goes to e6, knight goes to d7, bishop goes to e7 or d6, king is castled. That's literally all I'm going to do. And whenever the bishop is on the same line as the queen, I'm just going to play the move pawn c6. So that way, if he tries any weird discovered attacks, I can always put my queen on c7. All right, he develops his bishop to e2 instead. And you know what? Let's just go queen to c7 so that way we get out of this discovered attack. And then we continue with the normal development. Bishop on e2 is kind of passive. c4 would have been a bit more aggressive. So he got his king out the center. Now we go knight d7. I mean, I could have played e6, but I just want to ensure that he's not able to just jump his knight in on my e5 square. Now my plan is simply, see what he just did? He played bishop d2, then bishop to d3. Guys, wasting time. Let's just continue with our very solid pawn structure. We only have two pawn islands, and that's all we need. Maybe in the future we're going to play e5 or c5 as our plan. No, whenever they play bishop to d3. You see, when they play bishop e2, then they finally decide to play bishop e3, you still don't have to take. Because if you take, you're helping their queen. And remember, to take is a mistake. So I'm going to play this move, bishop to g4, pinning the knight to the queen, knowing that he's able to play h3 and chase away my bishop. But then I'm going to go back to h5 and I'm going to maintain this very annoying pin on his queen. So he puts the bishop back on e2, which means the guy's just wasting time. Let me just continue with my development here. And I'm also threatening the pawn on h2 because the knight on f3 is the main defender. So now he has to play pawn to h3, which, okay, does chase away my bishop. But then I'm just going to move the bishop. I'm going to castle my king, and this is the whole idea. So he did play h3. Let's pull the bishop back to h5. I would like for him to play g4. I mean, maybe I'm not going to sack, but it exposes his king. I may even run to the queen side just to attack him. Wait, that's actually a nice plan because I didn't really commit where I'm planning on castling just yet. So what if I'm able to go h6, g5, followed by g4, open the g file pointing towards his king, and start an attack? That can't be a bad plan. So he plays the move queen to d2. Let's just play the move pawn to h6 first. So I could still castle on the king side if I change my mind. I'm also thinking about bishop b4, pin the knight, jump in with the knight. But okay, now he's just getting his rook on the d line. Now I hit him with g5. I'm sure he was not expecting this. And you guys could use this idea when you get them to push pawns on the side that your king is on. This pawn on h3 is called a hook. And you should use the opponent's hook to open lines for your pieces. Because the moment my pawn gets to g4, if he takes, I take, the g file is open, I castle on the queen side and start the attack on his king. Hmm. Learn to count, bro. Why would you put your knight on e5? I clearly have three pieces covering the square and you only have one. I'm assuming my king is in the center of the board, so he thinks he's able to sacrifice. I mean, it's definitely debatable, but because I know that I'm about to be ahead in my wait, if I take the bishop first, he takes the knight first, and if I take the rook, he takes this knight with check. So maybe I have to take the knight first. Question is how? Knight takes knight. If he takes my bishop, I'm always going to take. And if he takes, I take back and I'm safe. King is in the center, but we're ahead by a pawn. Knight could eventually go to f4 and everything should be fine. So still had to be a bit careful. But if he takes, I just take. And if he takes here, I simply take back and I'm fine. So he took. Let's take back. Very solid position. Okay, was also expecting that. Now we take, which means I can also put my knight on the f4 square, which is very strong. Now, there's one downside of my position. I mean, I'm ahead by a pawn, but I'm not able to get castled anymore because this d file is open. But one thing I could do is play rook to d8, hit the queen, and start trading pieces off the board. But I don't want to do all of that with my rook on h8. I may also still castle on the king side. Like, that's still a possibility. Okay, knight jumps into e4. We have to be very careful now. He wants to put the knight either here or here. Knight can't go here, but the knight could go here or here. Now, I'm thinking about f5 hit the knight. Maybe he just puts the knight here. I'm also thinking about just castling my king. Why can't I just castle? Like, if I castle, maybe he's going to sacrifice something. Come in with the queen. I'm able to block with my knight and I'm safe. Pawn to f5 is also interesting because if he plays knight to c5, pawn to f4 traps the bishop, but he's going to take and attack my queen. We have to be careful. Here's the plan. Move the knight to f4. The bishop still covers f6. If he comes in with a check, I'm just going to trade everything and then play king e7 and attack the rook. Or maybe even knight d5 and hit the bishop. Now, my plan is actually to castle on the king side because castling on the queen side is out the window. And once I'm able to consolidate my position, trade some pieces off the board, I will just be playing with an extra pawn. By the way, guys, if you haven't liked the video as yet, this is the time to like. You're 1800 in the video, and the likes really help the channel. You know, we're trying to get 1,000 likes this video. So knight c5 was played. Queen to d7 is an idea. Knight to d7 is an idea. Something going to d7 is definitely an idea. So the question is, do we castle now or do we play knight d5 and hit the bishop first? Knight d5 hits the bishop. What does he have if I play knight d5 hit the bishop actually? I'm not seeing what he has. Maybe I could even castle on the queen side. Like castling on the queen side would be perfect if he allows it. So maybe I should play knight d5 first then. Yeah, let's hit that bishop. Let's hit the bishop. I mean, there's some little sacrificial ideas on g5, but there's no way in which that would work. Like, my bishop would just start attacking his queen immediately. And by the way, guys, I'm not threatening to castle on the queen side. If I'm able to castle on the queen side, then everything should just be fine. Bishop d4 was played. This is what I like to see. He's also trying to offer some trades. All right, already there's bishop f4, which hits the queen, followed by pawn e5, which hits the bishop. Don't want to trap my bishop on f4, though. That's the thing. So one thing I could do is I could castle no. If I castle no, takes, hit this pawn, rook e1 hits the queen, grab rook b1, queen c3 becomes an idea. Or I could takes, then castle. But I mean, he's still going to play rook to e1 anyway, so maybe I should just castle and just get that out the way. So let's just get the king out the center of the board. That's very important. My rook is also on the same line as his queen, so things could still be happening. We're now just safe. All right, so he took. We must take back. Moves his queen out the way, hitting my unprotected pawn here. If I take this pawn, rook to b1 is very dangerous. All right, let's just not rush. I mean, just a regular moving the king to b8 should be fine. And then if he moves the pawn to c4, I can always just play knight to b6. Save my knight. Oh, no. No, no, no. Because the moment I move my knight, my queen is unprotected. And knight a6 wins material. Yo, we have to be careful. Here's what I'm going to do. Instead of protecting the a7 pawn, I'm going to try to protect it, but tactically. So I'm going to play this move, knight b6. I didn't really protect the pawn, but I know that if he takes my pawn, there's a drawback, and he loses the knight. And the good thing is, I didn't play king to b8, so there's no knight a6 discovered attack to win material. And if he plays rook to e1 here, should be able to just take on d1 so that way my queen is no longer under attack. Okay, he plays b4. He just protected the knight. So he's definitely going to take here next move. We have to be careful. And king to b1 does not work. How did this guy manage to switch the attack to my queen side? Maybe I should have castled on the king side. Okay, takes, rook here. That doesn't work. The only way to defend this pawn is the most uncomfortable way. But I'm not trying to give this guy a pawn. I don't like to pull my pieces back, but I have to do it. Queen back to b8 defends the pawn. The good thing is the queen and the knight is currently over here. So even though I'm kind of keep like the center of the board, I don't really have any pieces there. His pieces are here. The action is happening over here. So I mean, personally, I want him to trade, but he's not gonna just trade and give me the open file. Guys, 1800. There's ideas of playing knight c4, just chasing the queen out. I'm also trying to go. Okay, that move I was definitely expecting. He's trying to open as many lines pointing towards my king. All right, rook to d5. If rook takes, I takes. Pawn takes. Pawn push. He's able to check here. That doesn't work. Knight here hits the queen. He moves the queen, attacks my knight. I takes, queen takes. My knight is just not comfortable there. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I think I'm just going to take. It's fine. Like, after the queen takes, I'm thinking about playing knight d5. So that way I'm able to pull my knight back to c7 and attack the queen. Or I could just play queen to c7 because, okay, it's a bit uncomfortable for my queen to be here. Anytime we trade, I'm just going to take back. So queen to c7, get my queen back in the game. Maybe he's going to play a4 to try to attack my knight. And I'm just going to beg him for a queen trade with queen to c6, to be honest. All right, let's start getting the pieces in the game. Queen to c7, just get the queen back in the game. Would be funny if he just puts his queen back to a5 and attack this, but should be able to play king to b8 now and defend the pawn since my queen is no longer on e5. Rook d3. Now I know what this guy's trying to do. He's trying to do some rook lift business. I want none of that. The thing is, if I takes, pawn takes opens up the c file, so that's kind of weird. Or maybe he's also trying to double up here. All right, what's the plan? Beg him for a queen trade. He says no, and he goes here. Knight d5 is an idea, maybe to put the knight on f4. Knight d5 also prevents his rook from coming on the same line as my king and my queen. So knight d5 can't be a bad idea. And in some cases, I can always go here, hit the rook. Like, I should trade. I know that I want to trade, but once he takes with the pawn, it's a bit weird. All right, the time is ticking. We have to start playing now. Let's put the knight on d5. I'm under attack the whole game. Whenever you're under attack, the goal is to look for ways to trade the pieces off the board, but it can't be any random trade, because if you notice, I could have took the rook, but it opens up the c file. It's very important that we see these little details. Guy has more time on the clock than me, but we both have low time. And if we both have low time, I just need to play a bit faster here, and I should be good. All right, he doubles up the rook. Takes alert. Tactics alert. Knight here, fork. If he takes, that's mate. Knight here, he takes here. But then I takes, he takes, I takes, and I lose. That's not a tactic. So now he's trying to do this. I need to get these pieces off of my half ASAP, ASAP. A6 hits the queen. Yeah, let's go with A6. Because once I hit the queen has to go somewhere where it keeps the knight guarded. Oh, I forgot about the time. We have to play fast, guys. We have to play so fast. It's crazy. Boom. Maybe here. Hit the rook. Nah. If he goes here, maybe here, hit the queen. From here, it's just a matter of trades. Queen c4, I'm wondering if I'm able to go b5 and hit the queen again. b5 hits the queen. Queen here, maybe knight back. Queen takes, takes. Rook takes, takes. No, that doesn't work. All right, let's do this. That's the first move that I saw. If he takes, I play rook takes, and if he takes, I have to play king takes. The queen still has to keep his knight guarded. I have 50 seconds on the clock. It's time to play fast now. Oh, I can also play queen takes, right? Yeah, I can also play queen takes because I'm attacking his queen. So there's no discovered attack here. Like, anywhere he puts the knight, I take the queen. And if he pulls the queen back, maybe I'm going to check and then go back here, then move my king out the way. All right, we both have 40 seconds on the clock, but he's now using up the time, like what I'm seeing now. So if he moves the queen back, I'm going to check king up, check. That's going to burn some time off his clock. Okay. That king moves. That king moves. Knight d5 hits the queen. No, let's just get the king out the way. All right, let's just get the king off the same line as the off his queen. I mean, oh yeah, I was just about to tell you guys that that's my weakest pawn, and he check and hit the pawn. But good thing is his knight is now under attack, so he can't take. So he moves his knight out the way, and if I push, he takes. What the heck? All right, what to play here? Let's go here and target this pawn. And if he takes my pawn, I take his pawn. Yo, the guy has no time on the clock. You have to be faster than this, bro. Now if he takes my other pawn, I take here, but he lost. More Scandinavian against 1900 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1900. We're still playing some more Scandinavian. He takes, we take with the queen, regular stuff. Knight c3, the queen goes to a5. The other good thing about the Scandinavian defense, guys, is if you're someone who plays slowly, you can also just get out of the opening without even thinking about it, because you already know exactly where you're going to be putting the pieces, and you kind of know what's happening. Like, the bishop goes here, we play c6, we're pulling the queen back. Look like he's trying to castle on the queen side. Let's just pull the queen back, not to allow any drama, and then we're going to play e6, knight d7, bishop e7 or d6. And notice how quickly I'm able to get out of the opening. He develops his knight, I'll also develop my knight. Now he's deciding where he's going to get castled. And once he castles, he's basically completed his development, so that's not bad. So he castled on the queen side. Let's just play e6 here. And now my plan is to start an attack on his king. Like, opposite colored castles in the Scandinavian is usually very crazy, because he's also going to try to start an attack on my king. All right, guy's already starting his attack. Knight to d4. Very strong move. If I pull back, Bishop takes, knight takes, queen e5, trying to trade the queens. Knight c7 check, very strong. And I move the king, he trade the queens, he takes my rook, but I should be able to be trapping that knight. So that's my idea. Now, it's definitely a good plan for him, especially if I miscalculated something here, then that would be crazy. And okay, I'm slightly afraid of this knight takes, well, not knight takes, but bishop takes e6 idea. But luckily, I'm able to play queen e5 to put my queen in the way. Ah, he didn't go for it. I think he's trying to prepare it a bit more. And I actually don't want to wait to see if it works or not. Like, I'm planning on just running out the center. I mean, there's bishop e7 here. And then he takes, knight takes, attack this, attack this. Don't want to allow all of that. Let me just get out of the center. I don't want to know if it works or not. So it's not a opposite side castles game. There's one thing he could do, which is to take and then fork on e6. And then he's probably going to be like, okay, I have a rook and two pawns. Or I have a rook and two pawns versus knight and bishop, but knight and bishop is always very strong. So I'm also not afraid of this. We still have the very solid Scandinavian structure. My plan is still to just complete my development, swing my pieces in the game. But one of the main things that I'm looking out for is he able to sacrifice material on e6? Ooh, he went for it. He went for it. The guy's very materialistic. Now he's gonna take with the idea of just taking on d8. All right, so let's see. How do we do this? The good thing is his queen is not able to enter after he takes. I like the idea of playing queen b6, but knight a4 could be annoying unless I'm able to play queen to b5 and attack that knight. So let's just move my queen to b6. If he takes, I'm going to take with the queen, finish my development, and the knight and the bishop should be the rook and the two pawns. But let's see, because the rook and two pawn, if you add those together, that's 7 points. The knight and the bishop, 6 points. So could say the guy's ahead in material, but a knight and a bishop is two pieces. A rook and two pawn is just one piece and two pawns. So now he's trying to put his bishop on this diagonal, which is a very nice diagonal for his bishop. Let's finish your development, pin the knight to the rook. Now I want to play some moves like knight e5, apply pressure to the pinned knight, hit the bishop, swing my rook over into e8. And it's very important that I now play with all my pieces. If I'm able to start throwing all my pieces at him, he's going to see why he shouldn't have given up a knight and a bishop for a rook. All right, knight e4 is a very nice idea. Not really, though. I think the guy's just trying to trick me. Obviously, if I take the rook, my bishop no longer guards the square. He's going to check. I'm going to be forced to put the king on the same line as the bishop. Knight f7, discovered attack, win my queen. So what am I going to do in a scenario like this? Just take the knight first. Like, your rook is still hanging, bro. So if I take the knight first, maybe he's going to play c3 at that point. But I don't know. I mean, guy's giving back material very, very quickly. Now, once I take the rook, afterwards, no, I'm going to take the rook. Now, what's the material count? I'm now just clearly ahead in material. I think I'm ahead by a piece now. It's crazy, bro. 1900, by the way. So he took with the queen. Now I'm only ahead by 1 point. I think I'm ahead by a piece, but he has like two pawns for it. Uh, his rook is on the same line as my queen, so we definitely need to get out of this pin. But for now, this rook is not really doing anything, and rooks do need files. So, well, if I go here, he's going to go here and attack my rook. So let's go rook to e8, apply some pressure to e4. I'm expecting him to play f3 in order to guard the pawn, and then I'm just going to get my queen off the same line as that rook. I think he's going to go here, though, and trying to attack. So I don't want my queen to be too far away from the action. So let's just put it here. All right, so queen a5 hits the unprotected pawn. God, did I just fumble this game, bro? Seriously, that was such a good move. Because I thought I was able to go here, guard the pawn, but he's also threatening mate here. So I have to defend against this checkmate. I just have to. And if I move my knight, oh my lord, what's happening? All right, let me just put my knight in the way. I think I just have to put my knight in the way of this bishop, and I have to give him back this pawn. Like, I'm ahead by the piece, but my bishop is currently just not participating in the game. So it's gonna be very dangerous for me. Once he goes here, I'm gonna try to start trading the pieces off the board. If he checks, I go king up. Okay, that's weird. That may lead the game to a draw. I may even lose. All right, so he took the pawn. How do we do this? Think I have to play queen to c7 for now. So that way, if he checks, I'm able to block with the queen. But this position is currently just extremely dangerous. I'm no longer ahead in material, by the way, guys. Like, the position is now just equal. Yes, I have the piece, but the guy has three pawns. All right, so he took. He's going for some trades. Not sure why he would take there, but let's say I take with the queen. If he check, I block with the queen. That's fine. Whenever you're defending, it's very important that you're able to spot every single possible checks that the opponent has on your king. And if there's any possible check that the opponent has on your king, it means your king is weak. But let's just take back. Now we have 3 pieces, but he has so many pawns. If I give him one more pawns, then he's going to be ahead in material. I'm still trying to trade the pieces off the board though, because, okay, rook comes here. What's the plan? Can I get away with grabbing this pawn? What is the plan? Where's that rook going? Maybe he's trying to put the rook around here, which is very, very dangerous. Wait, can I check here and then grab this pawn? I'm not trying to be too greedy, but I must counterattack. So if I check him here and he moves the king, I grab this pawn, but then he checks. After check, I go here. He checks again here. After that check, I go here, but then he check here. And after I take, that's a draw. Hmm. All right, like I have the bishop, I have to use it to do something. Like right now, it's just really not doing anything. Let's pull the bishop back, target this pawn, but I'm at least trying to get the bishop on this file. So for example, rook goes here, I go here. Maybe he moves the queen, but my plan is to just put my bishop here. So he plays g3. It's funny. Maybe he thinks his pawn was hanging and I didn't see it, and oh, he didn't see the free pawn. Nah, bro, your attack is actually dangerous. So I'm gonna go here, hit the rook. If he puts the rook here, I go here. I should not be afraid of any sacrifices. So let's hit him with bishop to c4. And at least now I could say I'm ahead by a bishop. Well, not ahead by a bishop in terms of I have more material, but I have a bishop that he don't have. And at least I could say I'm using my bishop. All right, so he moves the rook to d4. Can't take here. The queen guards it. The plan was to simply get my bishop here. Now I could say I'm a bit safer. Like anytime he checks, I'm just gonna go here. Like one thing he could do though is to take stakes, put his rook on my 7th rank, and said, "Hey, your pawn is under attack. We're in the end game. If the position is equal, everything is fine." But it's not gonna be too comfortable for him to just trade the pieces off the board like that. All right, queen goes to b6. Hmm. Thinking of just going here. There's a check here that doesn't do anything. It's time to start trading some pieces off the board. Also, I need to ensure that my king is a bit safer. My queen is already centralized, so I don't necessarily need to move that queen. So let's just play this move pawn to g6, because I'm assuming eventually he's going to want to start attacking these pawns. Like if I pull back and he goes here, that was a check that I was predicting. He moves his king to b1. All right, now I'm trying to find some ways to trade. Trying to trade here. All right, let's hit the queen. Let's hit the queen. Queen is not gonna trade. But my next move is to play rook to d8. And that's why I play this move g6, because I know he's gonna want to play this move. Queen to f5. Okay, but there's also this check. Whoa. So I go here, he checks, I move. Should still be fine. We have to play with some speed here. Here, I go here. The great thing about the position is I'm no longer under attack. I'm just neutralizing pieces now. Now, the plan for white in a position like this is to start rolling the pawns. The plan for black in a position like this is to maybe try to find some way to attack him and checkmate his king, or maybe try to capture some of his pawns. Like, I'm not in any situation where I'm able to start pushing past pawn. So he hits my rook, guard his rook. Notice how he's just trying to maintain control over the file. Let's just take, since we have to trade. And now let me just, not 100% sure what's happening, but we have to play with some speed and I have to ensure that everything is guarded. My bishop on a6 now, it doesn't necessarily have to be here anymore. Okay, he plays a3. To me, it looks like a random pawn move. I'm going to go here, he push, centralize the bishop. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And okay, he clearly wants to be pushing the pawns up the board, so I shouldn't allow him to freely push the pawns up the board. But once my bishop is centralized, his pawns are just not going to be able to move. So now he push. Now I'm okay, but if I centralize the bishop, he hits the bishop. And if I go here, he check. I still have to be careful. All right, so let's go. How does this even work, bro? Okay, let's try king to c7. The bishop is unprotected. That's not a good sign. I want to centralize the... Oh, maybe I should allow him to push it so that way he weakens his king. Okay, he hits the bishop, threatening some checks here. Now we centralize the bishop. If he checks, I just go back. But I want you guys to notice how there's 4 pawns versus 2 pawns. He needs to find the plan to start rolling the pawns up the board. Now let's go here, making it very hard for him to push his C pawn. Yeah, but he just has no time on the clock. That's the thing. Now he plays B3. Takes, check, queen block. I don't want to sack. That could end in a draw. Pawn push is also an idea. All right, now I'm going to try to start some attack on his pawns, especially since his time is running out. I'm also trying to find some ways to check his king as well. So he pushes, doesn't care about his pawn. Let's check the king. Yo, once his queen check me here, that could also lead to a draw. I hope I'm not being too careless. Let's check him here, then check him here. Oh, no more checks. And this could lead to a draw. Did I just sell this? Let's just play pawn b6 for now. Because if he takes my bishop, pawn c5. Oh, we got him good. He took the bishop without even thinking about it. That's a fort. We got him right in the time pressure. That's crazy, bro. Now I'm just completely winning. Okay, I thought that was a check. It wasn't. So still winning here, though. He has no time. And from here, I just need to mess up his pawn structure. He still has a lot of pawns rolling up the board, but I have a queen, so those pawns should not be going anywhere. Now I'll finally start just taking all the pawns off the board, and now I should be fine. Now my goal is to set up some checkmates. All right, let's check the king. Let's force the king to move. How does this work? Or maybe I should just take this pawn. Trying to find checkmate though. Okay, now we go here. This will be a checkmate. Once he pushed the pawn, that's just a checkmate. More Scandinavian defense against 2000 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 2000. We're ending things with a banger of a Scandinavian. He takes the pawn. Let's just play queen takes. Knight c3, we play queen a5. We know exactly what's happening. Okay, it's good that someone play this because you're gonna see this at least one out of every 18 games that you play. I mean, if someone play b4 and sacrifice a pawn, just take the pawn. And then you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just going home. I already got the pawn. He's gonna get some tempo. Like the rook gets the file, he gets the development here. So it's not like I'm completely winning or anything, but I just need to consolidate my position. And you guys kind of know the regular normal setup that we're going for. The only difference is we're not necessarily trying to move this bishop because the rook is applying pressure to b7. So I may just do everything, keep the bishop on c8, and then after I finish my development, I figure out the plan with my bishop. And in some cases, the bishop goes here. So he develops his knight. Assuming he wants to play c5, d4, let's just go knight to f6, regular chess. Mm, that can't be good. You know what's funny? I was actually planning on playing c6. Like, you guys already know the whole purpose of c6. So the fact that he checked me and allowed me to play c6 for free, I mean, thanks. That's a free tempo. And remember, we got a pawn, and in return, he got some tempo. So if he's going to give us back the tempi, and tempi is just plural for tempo, you know? You don't say tempos, you say tempi. But anyways, he pulls the bishop back. How does this work? Bishop g4, okay, we're not moving this bishop. Let's just go knight d7. Knight d7, if he sack, I'm fine. There's also knight b6, guys. And if I'm able to put my knight on b6 like this, boom, one could see I'm now able to develop my bishop. I could even develop my bishop, pin the knight, get my king out the center of the board. Maybe it's a bit risky though because the rook is on the file. Like, I don't want to take any unnecessary risk. I may just put my queen on c7 to defend b7, then develop my bishop. Let's see. I mean, he has to put his bishop somewhere. So he pulls the bishop back, and like, I'm just not sure if I should go bishop g4 or I should go e6. Like, should I block the bishop in or not? Because I may need the bishop defending this. All right, I'm going to think about it afterwards. Let's play queen c7 first and guard the pawn. Like, if he goes for some immediate a4, a5 to attack my knight, then I may keep the bishop there. If he plays some regular moves, okay, that's a regular move. Bishop g4 pins the knight. If he sack, I takes, knight e5 should be able to sack the queen. So bishop g4, pawn push, bishop back, a5, pawn e6, a4, knight d5. And if he takes, I takes, and I'm fine, right? Because development is still important. Let's go bishop g4. I'm doing fine. There's no sacrificial ideas here. Because if he takes, I play king takes, knight e5, I sack the queen. And if he takes my queen, I take his queen. And everything is fine. Okay, I mean, now he's trying to trade, but we're ahead in material. I mean, we're welcoming the trades, right? Think he wants to take here. But I'm just going to continue with my development. Pawn e6. If he takes, because I kind of afraid of this. So pawn e6, if I take with the pawn, and at least I'm able to put my rook on this file. And don't forget that I'm ahead by a pawn. So every trade that happens on the board, I should be happy with it. Not sure when I'm going to get castled. I think eventually I'm going to castle on the queen side, but I don't want to make it obvious because he's going to immediately start his attack. So h6, no need to take. Let's just pull the bishop back, maintain the pin. Knight g3 is also an attacking move, but I'll simply pull the bishop back. Everything is still solid, and as you guys could see, we still have our very solid pawn structure. So he hits the bishop, that's fine. Let's just pull back. Maybe he's also able to play knight e5 with the bishop, but I'm just going to go bishop d6. I think I'm going to go bishop d6 regardless, because then I'm going to have two pieces attacking this knight. Okay, he fianchetto his bishop. Maybe he wants to take, but I don't really care. I kind of want to trade. Let's finish our development. We're also applying pressure to this knight on g3. And I want you guys to notice that I only use 2 minutes on my clock so far because all the moves are so easy to play. He's the one who is burning the time because he already sacrificed a pawn. So he's trying to find some ways to get compensation, which I'm going to allow that. All right, now we have to be a bit careful, but just a bit, like just a tiny bit because of this e6 square. And usually there's some crazy sacrifices happening here, but that is a pawn. So let's say we take the pawn, he sacrifices on e6. That shouldn't work. It just shouldn't work. I takes, king takes, I check. That shouldn't work. So takes, queen takes. Then he sacrifices on e6. Then I takes, knight takes. The thing is about this position is I'm better. So let's not complicate the game. Let me just castle, right? Like if I castle, the whole idea is to sack on e6, takes, knight takes, go for the fork, but that should not work. Like the two pieces should beat the rook any day. Especially since I'm already ahead by a pawn. So it's not gonna be a case where he's ahead in material. It's just gonna be equal, and I'm gonna have the two pieces. Okay, he gave up the bishop for the knight. Let's just take back, hit the knight. Will he sacrifice on e6 or will he play bishop takes e6 check? Bishop e6, I'm just gonna take. Knight takes, I move and I'm fine. That's exactly what he's going for. Okay, bro, where do we put this queen? Let's just go queen here. Let's just go queen here for now. And he's gonna take. I also have the bishop here, but kind of thinking about just taking the knight. But let's not do that. I'm just going to take back the rook. Now the position is equal, but I'm the one with more pieces on the chessboard, and I have a bishop here, and there's no real attack on my king just yet. All right, now he's centralizing his knight. Not bad move, not bad at all. He's hitting this, he's hitting my bishop. Why don't I just centralize the bishop, protect my pawn, and because I have this battery on his d2 pawn, I'm now threatening to take the knight and then take on d2. So he has to do something about that. Okay, so he found it, played d3. Like the idea of knight d5 to go for this fork, but I think I want to just centralize my queen. There's also this move, which I really like. It's a bit more aggressive. Queen d5 applies some pressure to e5, but I'm also attacking this unprotected pawn. Ha ha ha, he played a4. That's actually exactly where I wanted him because he thinks I'm going to take the pawn. And if he thinks I'm going to take the pawn, then he's totally correct. But I'm not going to take the pawn on his terms. I'm going to take the pawn on my terms. Here's how I'm going to take the pawn. Notice how the rook is on the same line as the queen. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this knight. Obviously, if he takes, I'm going to trade because the two pieces will beat the knight, well, the rook, any day. So once I take here, if he takes with the rook, I sack the queen. And if he takes my queen, then I take his queen. And after the rook takes, that's when I take the pawn. I'm going to be ahead in material. And I'm also going to be rolling this pawn up the board, completely winning the game. Let's take the knight. This is called conversion. So he took with the rook, doesn't change the price of rice. Let's just sack the queen, grab his rook, take on a4. We're now ahead in material. And I mean, my two pieces are just so strong. So he plays f3. It's time to start rolling the pawns, guys. But let's just move the knight out the way first with tempo on his rook. The rook does not have any entry square in my half of the board, by the way. That's important. And putting the rook here is just bad because he can't take the knight. He can't really go back. And in the next four moves, I'm going to have a queen on the board. Wait, wait. Oh, I was about to say, could he have played f4, but I had knight check. So now he's actually threatening f4. And that's why I'm going to play c5. I have to be careful. Now if he plays f4, I don't take because I lose my knight. Instead, I'm going to play bishop d4, check the king, then continue to roll the pawns up the board. So he's trying to get the king in the game. Let's keep rolling the pawns up the board. He's really trying to get the king over. Wait, if I push, rook takes, don't take back the rook. Because after king takes push, the king catch the pawn. So if I wait, do I check? King back? No. What do I do? Push, rook takes, don't take back the rook, push. Rook takes with check, move the king, rook behind the pawn, queen the pawn, rook takes, I take. I'm ahead by a bishop. That's one way to do it. Check. Okay, let's just do it. Let's just push the pawn. I think it's the only way to do it. Once he takes, we don't take back the rook because we're actually risking ourselves to lose the game. Instead, we push the pawn, and because my bishop covers the queening square, there's nothing he could do. Yes, he takes a pawn, but let's just move. He has to get behind. Then once we queen, we have the extra bishop. This is completely winning. Maybe he's gonna resign. Remember to like the video, guys. We need 1,000 likes on this video. All right, so he get the rook behind the pawn. Now we're just gonna queen, and he also has 30 seconds on the clock. I'm also gonna flag him as well. This is completely winning. All right, how do we do this? All right, let's get the king as active as possible first. King activity is crucial. King activity is crucial. Yeah, now we're just gonna take all his pawns. Like this is now just winning. Like there's just nothing he could do here. Like he's able to go here. Instead, he resigns. Please subscribe.